Jonathan Thornton swayed on his feet, the stench of cheap whiskey rolling off him in waves as he faced the tax assessor on his own front porch. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the dilapidated ranch house, its peeling paint and sagging porch a testament to years of neglect. "This is robbery!" Jonathan slammed his fist against the porch railing, causing a piece to break off and tumble to the dirt. "3 generations of Thorntons worked this land before you government vultures decided to pick our bones clean." The tax assessor, a thin man with spectacles and a leather portfolio, remained unmoved. "Mr. Thornton, your property taxes haven't been paid in 2 years. The Colorado Territory has authorized the auction of this property in 30 days unless payment is received in full." Lily Thornton stood in the doorway, her slender fingers gripping the frame so tightly her knuckles whitened. At 20, she had her mother's delicate features, high cheekbones, full lips, and intelligent hazel eyes, but years of hardship had etched premature lines around her mouth. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, stepping forward, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "Surely there's some arrangement we can make. The drought has affected every ranch in the county. We lost nearly half our cattle last season." The tax assessor's expression softened slightly when he looked at Lily. Everyone in Silver Creek knew her story, how she'd been caring for both the ranch and her father since her mother's death 5 years ago. "I'm sorry, Miss Thornton. The territorial government is under pressure to collect. With the railroad expansion—" He shook his head. "30 days is all I can give you." As Reynolds walked back to his wagon, Lily's mind raced calculating figures that simply wouldn't add up. They needed $300, an impossible sum for a failing ranch with barely enough cattle to justify the name. Jonathan stumbled past her into the house, grabbing the half-empty bottle from the table. "Bloodsuckers, all of them," he muttered, taking a deep swallow. "Father," Lily said quietly, "we need to discuss this. Perhaps if we sell the north pasture." Sell, Jonathan's face contorted. "Your grandfather would roll in his grave. This land stays in Thornton hands. It won't stay in Thornton hands if we lose it all to taxes." Lily countered, her patience wearing thin. "Mother would want us to be practical." At the mention of his late wife, Jonathan's expression darkened. "Don't you dare tell me what Elizabeth would want. You're just like her, always with your books and fancy ideas, thinking you're better than everyone else." The familiar pain lanced through Lily's heart. Her mother, Boston-born and educated, had insisted on teaching Lily everything from literature to mathematics, dreaming of a future where her daughter might have choices beyond the limited horizons of frontier life. "I'm trying to save our home," Lily said, fighting to keep her voice even. A knock at the door interrupted the brewing argument. Tobias Richardson stood there, his massive frame blocking the afternoon light. At 50, the butcher and cattle buyer was a wealthy widower whose 3 previous wives had all died under questionable circumstances. "Afternoon, Jonathan," he said, his small eyes glinting as they slid over Lily. "Heard from Reynolds about your predicament." "Come to gloat, Richardson," Jonathan snarled. "Come to make an offer," Richardson replied, stepping inside uninvited. $300 cash for your tax bill." Lily's breath caught. That was exactly what they needed. "And what do you want in return?" she asked, already knowing the answer from the way Richardson looked at her. The butcher smiled, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. "Just a simple business arrangement. The money for your hand in marriage, Lily. I need a wife to manage my household, and you need saving." He turned to Jonathan. "What do you say, Thornton? Do we have a deal?" Jonathan hesitated, and in that moment of silence, Lily felt her future hanging in the balance. "Father, no," she whispered. "Please." Richardson stepped closer, his voice dropping conspiratorially. "You know she'll never find another offer, Jonathan. Not with no dowry and that stubborn streak. I'm being generous here." To Lily's horror, Jonathan seemed to be considering it, looking between the bottle in his hand and Richardson's smug face. "No." The word came from Lily's lips with unexpected force. "I won't be sold to pay our debts." Richardson's smile vanished. "Nobody asked you, girl. This is between men." "And it's my life," Lily countered, standing taller. "And I'd sooner walk away with nothing than be your fourth wife, Mr. Richardson." Jonathan's face flushed with anger. "You ungrateful child. Richardson's offering to save our home, and you're too proud to do your part. What use are you to me, otherwise?" The words struck Lily like physical blows. "What use? I've run this ranch since Mother died. I've cooked your meals, mended your clothes, kept the books. And a fine job you've done." Jonathan gestured wildly around the shabby room. "Look where we are. You've been nothing but a burden these past years, eating food we can't afford." Richardson watched the exchange with calculating eyes. "The offer stands until morning, Jonathan. Think about it." With a last lingering look at Lily, he departed, leaving a suffocating silence behind. "Get out," Jonathan finally said, his voice cold. "What?" Lily whispered. "Get out of my house. If you won't do what needs to be done to save it, then you're no daughter of mine." He took another swig from the bottle. "Take whatever you can carry and go. I won't feed another useless mouth." Shock rendered Lily momentarily speechless. Despite years of his drinking and verbal abuse, she'd never truly believed he would cast her out. "Father, you don't mean that." "Where would I go?" "Not my concern," Jonathan replied, turning away. "Maybe your mother's fancy education will feed you." Lily stood frozen dignity, battling desperation. Finally, pride won out. "Very well," she said quietly. "I'll go." In her small bedroom, Lily packed swiftly, tears blurring her vision. Into a weathered carpetbag went her few possessions: 2 dresses, undergarments, her mother's silver hairbrush, a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice, and the small leather-bound ledger where she'd kept the ranch accounts. Tucked into her boot was a thin-bladed knife, her mother's final gift, because a woman alone needs protection, Elizabeth had whispered from her deathbed. Lily changed into her sturdiest dress and boots, then tied her mother's faded blue shawl around her shoulders. From beneath a loose floorboard, she retrieved a small pouch containing $17.12, her secret savings from selling eggs and handwork in town. When she emerged, Jonathan sat slumped at the table, staring at nothing. For a moment, Lily hoped he might relent, might apologize, as he sometimes did after his worst outbursts. Instead, he didn't even look up. "Close the door on your way out." Rain had begun to fall as Lily stepped onto the porch, the skies as gray as her prospects. Silver Creek lay 15 miles east, a full day's walk in good weather. She hesitated, gazing back at the only home she'd ever known. Then, squaring her shoulders, she stepped off the porch and into the gathering storm. The rain intensified as Lily followed the rutted road eastward. Within an hour, her boots squelched with every step, and her shawl provided little protection against the driving rain. Night would fall soon, and with it, the temperature would drop. She needed to find shelter or risk exposure. A crack of thunder made her jump. In that same instant, she noticed movement in the trees ahead, men on horseback emerging onto the road. Lily tensed her hand, moving instinctively to the knife in her boot. Lone women on the frontier faced dangers beyond weather. 3 riders blocked her path, their horses snorting clouds of vapor into the chill air. The leader, a weasel-faced man with a dirty bandana, grinned as he surveyed her. "Well, boys, seems we found ourselves a little lost bird," he called over his shoulder. "What's a pretty thing like you doing out here alone, darlin'?" Lily kept her expression neutral, calculating her options. Running was pointless. Fighting 3 men was suicide. "I'm on my way to Silver Creek," she said firmly. "My family is expecting me." The men exchanged amused glances. "That's so funny thing is, we just came from that direction, and nobody mentioned expecting such a fine-looking visitor," said the leader, dismounting and splattering mud as he approached her. "What's your name, girl?" "That's none of your concern," Lily replied, taking a step backward. "Please, let me pass." The man lunged forward, grabbing her arm. "Don't be unfriendly now. We're just offering you a warm, dry place to wait out this storm." Lily's fingers closed around the knife handle, but before she could draw it, the sharp crack of a rifle shot split the air. The would-be assailant froze his grip, loosening. "I suggest you gentlemen move along," called a deep voice from the trees. "Unless you'd like to see what happens when I aim at something besides tree bark." 3 riders emerged from the woods, 2 weathered men flanking a younger one, whose confident posture marked him as their leader. His face was partially shadowed by the brim of his hat, but Lily could make out a strong jawline and piercing blue eyes that assessed the situation with cool efficiency. "Blackwood," the weasel-faced man spat recognition and fear mingling in his voice. "This ain't your business." "I'm making it my business," the newcomer replied, his rifle unwavering. "Miss, are you all right?" Lily nodded, relief and wariness battling within her. "Good. Now you boys have exactly 10 seconds to disappear back into whatever hole you crawled out of." The leader of the road agents hesitated, clearly weighing his options. Whatever he saw in Blackwood's steady gaze seemed to decide the matter. "Come on, boys," he muttered. "She ain't worth getting shot over." Once they'd galloped away, the man called Blackwood dismounted and approached Lily. Up close, she could see he was perhaps 30, with weathered skin that spoke of years under the harsh western sun. His eyes, however, were what held her attention, a startling blue that seemed to see straight through pretense. "Hayes Blackwood," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "Owner of the Double B Ranch north of Silver Creek. These are my men, Tom Fletcher and Charlie Bear." He gestured to his companions, who remained mounted. "Lily Thornton," she replied, dignity reasserting itself despite her bedraggled appearance. "Thank you for your intervention, Mr. Blackwood." Recognition flickered in his eyes. "Jonathan Thornton's daughter. I tried to buy cattle from him last spring." Lily's jaw tightened. Of course her father's reputation would precede her. "Yes," she acknowledged simply. Blackwood studied her, taking in her soaked clothes and carpetbag. "Silver Creek's still 10 miles off, Miss Thornton, and this storm isn't letting up. May I ask what brings you out alone in such weather?" Pride warred with practicality in Lily's mind. This man had possibly saved her from assault or worse. She owed him honesty. "My father has decided I'm no longer welcome at the ranch," she said carefully. "I'm seeking employment in town." Blackwood's expression darkened. "He put you out in this weather." Lily lifted her chin. "I made my choice. I refused an arrangement he found beneficial." Understanding dawned in Blackwood's eyes, followed by something Lily couldn't quite identify. Respect, perhaps. "Miss Thornton, I can't in good conscience leave you to walk to town in this downpour. Please allow me to escort you. You can ride my horse Thunder, and I'll walk alongside." Lily hesitated. Accepting help from a strange man carried its own risks, but something in Blackwood's direct gaze inspired trust she rarely granted. "I'd be grateful, Mr. Blackwood." He helped her mount, his hands respectfully steady at her waist. then led the horse as they continued toward Silver Creek, his men riding slightly ahead. "You mentioned seeking employment," Blackwood said after a while. "Do you have particular skills?" "I kept all accounts for our ranch," Lily replied. "I can read, write, and calculate figures. I'm also experienced with household management and basic medicine." Blackwood nodded appreciatively. "Uncommon skills for these parts." "My mother was from Boston," Lily explained. "She believed education was important, even perhaps especially for a woman on the frontier." "A wise woman," Blackwood commented. "Silver Creek could use more such thinking." As they crested a hill, the lights of Silver Creek became visible through the rain, a small cluster of buildings nestled in the valley below. Relief flooded through Lily at the sight of civilization and potential sanctuary. Fletcher rode back to join them. "Boss looks like Reeves and his men are in town. Saw their horses outside the Grand Hotel." Blackwood's expression hardened momentarily. "Noted. We'll proceed anyway." Lily glanced between them. "Is there some trouble?" "Samuel Reeves represents the Union Pacific Railroad." Blackwood explained, his tone carefully neutral. "We have differing opinions on the future of this valley." The rain had eased to a drizzle by the time they reached Silver Creek's main street. Despite the weather and approaching evening, the town hummed with activity, miners, cowboys, and townspeople moving between the saloon, general store, and hotel. Blackwood helped Lily dismount outside Mrs. Winters's boarding house. "Mrs. Winters is a respectable woman who sometimes has rooms available," he explained. "She might also know of employment opportunities." The boarding house door opened before they could knock, revealing a stern-faced older woman with iron-gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Her eyes widened at the sight of Lily's bedraggled state. "Hayes Blackwood, what trouble have you brought to my door?" she demanded, though her tone lacked real heat. "No trouble, Mrs. Winters. This is Miss Lily Thornton. She's seeking lodging and employment in town. I thought you might be able to help." Mrs. Winters's shrewd eyes assessed Lily. "Thornton, Jonathan's girl." Lily nodded, bracing for judgment. Instead, Mrs. Winters sighed. "Come in before you catch your death. I've got stew on the stove." Inside the boarding house was clean and modestly furnished, the smell of cooking food making Lily suddenly aware of her hunger. Mrs. Winters bustled about, providing a towel and directing Lily to a chair near the fire. "As for employment," the older woman said, ladling stew into a bowl, "I'm afraid I just hired the Henderson girl last week. Don't need another helper right now." Lily's heart sank. "Are you aware of other positions available in town? I'm skilled with numbers and management." Mrs. Winters frowned thoughtfully. "The Silver Palace is always hiring girls." "That won't be necessary," Blackwood interrupted firmly, referencing Silver Creek's notorious brothel. Mrs. Winters nodded in agreement. "Nothing suitable for a respectable young woman at present, I'm afraid. Not until spring, when more families arrive." Lily stared into her stew, despair threatening to overwhelm her hard-won composure. One night at the boarding house would consume much of her meager savings, leaving her with dwindling options. "Miss Thornton," Blackwood said after a moment, "my housekeeper, Mrs. Donnelly, has been requesting help managing the Double B household. It would be respectable employment with fair wages and private accommodations." Lily looked up sharply. "At your ranch?" "Mrs. Donnelly is a formidable chaperone," Blackwood added, reading her concern. "She practically raised me after my parents died, and she's well respected throughout the territory. Your reputation would be quite safe." Mrs. Winters nodded confirmation. "Agatha Donnelly is as proper as they come. No one would think twice about you working under her supervision." Lily weighed her options carefully. The prospect of working at a bachelor's ranch raised obvious concerns about propriety, yet with Mrs. Donnelly's presence as chaperone, it could be respectable. More importantly, it offered immediate shelter and income. If Mrs. Donnelly truly needs the help, I would be grateful for the opportunity, she finally said. Relief crossed Blackwood's features. Excellent. We'll depart in the morning after you've had proper rest. He turned to Mrs. Winters. Please, put Miss Thornton's lodging on my account. That won't be necessary, Lily protested. I can pay my own way. Blackwood met her eyes directly. Consider it an advance on your wages, then. After he departed, Mrs. Winters showed Lily to a small but clean room upstairs. Hayes Blackwood is a good man, the older woman said, lighting the bedside lamp. Not like most. Lost his parents to raiders when he was just 15. His uncle took him in, taught him ranching from the ground up. He seems honorable, Lily ventured. Mrs. Winters nodded approvingly. That he is. One of the few men around here who still believes in such things. She paused at the door. Rest well, dear. I suspect your life is about to change considerably. Left alone, Lily sank onto the bed, the events of the day crashing over her in waves. She'd lost her home, been abandoned by her father, nearly assaulted, and now found herself accepting employment from a man she'd just met. Yet somehow, for the first time in years, she felt something stir beneath her exhaustion, a fragile tendril of hope. The following morning dawned clear and bright, as if the previous day's storm had washed the world clean. Lily rose early, washing with the pitcher and basin provided and changing into her spare dress. She carefully rebraided her chestnut hair and pinned it into a neat coronet, determined to present a composed professional appearance to her new employer. Downstairs, she found Blackwood already arrived, discussing local affairs with Mrs. Winters over coffee. He stood when Lily entered, his expression warming. Good morning, Miss Thornton. I trust you slept well. Yes, thank you, Lily replied, accepting the coffee Mrs. Winters poured for her. I'm ready to depart whenever you wish. Their meal was interrupted by the arrival of a newcomer, a tall, immaculately dressed man whose city clothes and imperious manner immediately set him apart from the typical Silver Creek resident. His cold gray eyes settled on Blackwood with barely disguised contempt. Blackwood, he said, removing his gloves with deliberate precision. I thought I recognized your horse outside. Reeves, Blackwood acknowledged, his posture subtly shifting. What brings Union Pacific's finest to our humble establishment? Samuel Reeves smiled thinly. Progress, as always. I've been meeting with local landowners about our planned route. His gaze shifted to Lily. I don't believe we've been introduced. Before Blackwood could speak, Lily extended her hand. Lily Thornton, I've just accepted a position managing Mr. Blackwood's household accounts. Recognition flashed in Reeves's eyes. Thornton, Jonathan Thornton's daughter. His smile widened fractionally. How interesting. I've had several productive conversations with your father recently. Something in his tone set alarm bells ringing in Lily's mind. Blackwood must have sensed it too, for he rose, effectively placing himself between Lily and Reeves. If you'll excuse us, we have a long ride ahead, he said firmly. Reeves stepped closer, lowering his voice. It's time to face reality, Blackwood. The railroad is coming through this valley whether you cooperate or not. Your land sits directly in our planned route, and we will have it one way or another. Is that a threat, Reeves? Merely a statement of fact. Progress doesn't wait for stubborn ranchers. Reeves turned to Lily. Miss Thornton, I'd reconsider your new position carefully. Mr. Blackwood is fighting a losing battle, and those around him may find themselves collateral damage. With that ominous pronouncement hanging in the air, Reeves departed, leaving a charged silence behind. What was that about? Lily asked once she was certain Reeves was gone. Blackwood's expression was grim. Union Pacific wants to run their tracks straight through the heart of my ranch, cutting off water access for half my grazing land. I've refused their offers. And my father is somehow involved. Blackwood hesitated. It appears so. I'm sorry, Miss Thornton. Lily absorbed this information, pieces falling into place. Her father's increased drinking, the ranch's financial troubles, his desperate attempt to marry her off to Richardson. Had he already made some deal with the railroad? Was that why he'd been so eager to be rid of her? "Thank you for your honesty," she said quietly. "It changes nothing about our arrangement." Blackwood studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "We should get started then. It's a 2-hour ride to Double B." Outside, Lily found not the expected horses, but a small buggy with Fletcher at the reins. At her questioning look, Blackwood explained, "I thought you might prefer this to riding double, Miss Thornton. More comfortable and better for your reputation when we arrive." The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched Lily unexpectedly. As they set off, the morning sun warming their faces, she found herself stealing glances at the man beside her, wondering what twist of fate had brought her from the depths of despair to this unexpected path forward, and what challenges lay ahead at the Double B. The Double B Ranch sprawled across the rolling foothills north of Silver Creek, its boundaries marked by natural features, a winding creek to the east, a ridge of pine-covered hills to the west. As the buggy crested the final rise, Lily caught her breath at the sight below. Unlike her family's struggling homestead, the Double B was a thriving operation with a large main house, several outbuildings, a sturdy barn, and extensive corrals filled with prime livestock. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Hayes Blackwood nodded, a touch of pride in his voice. "My uncle built most of it. I've expanded some since taking over." "How large is your operation?" Lily asked, her analytical mind already assessing what she saw. "About 12,000 acres, 300 head of cattle, 40 horses. We employ 15 men year-round, more during roundup and branding." The numbers impressed her. The Thornton Ranch, even in its better days, had never approached this scale. As they approached the main house, a plump woman with silver-streaked auburn hair hurried onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. Her sharp eyes took in the buggy's occupants, narrowing slightly when they landed on Lily. "Mrs. Donnelly," Blackwood called, bringing the buggy to a stop. "I've brought you the help you've been badgering me about." The housekeeper's stern expression softened with interest. "Well, it's about time. These old bones can't keep up with a house this size and 20 hungry men besides." She assessed Lily frankly. "Come inside, girl. You look like you could use some tea after riding with this one." She jerked her thumb toward Blackwood, who merely smiled. Lily descended from the buggy with Blackwood's assistance, feeling suddenly uncertain. Mrs. Donnelly's scrutiny was intimidating, but something about her no-nonsense demeanor reminded Lily of her mother. The main house was spacious and well-maintained, with polished wooden floors, sturdy furniture, and an unexpected number of bookshelves lining the walls. Mrs. Donnelly led them to a large kitchen, dominated by a cast-iron stove and a massive oak table that could easily seat 12. "Sit," the housekeeper commanded, pouring tea for Lily. "Hayes says you've agreed to help manage the household. What experience do you have?" "I've run my father's ranch since my mother died 5 years ago," Lily replied. "Cooking, cleaning, mending, accounting, whatever was needed." Mrs. Donnelly's eyebrows rose. "Accounting, you have figures learning. My mother taught me. She believed education was essential, even perhaps especially for women on the frontier." "Smart woman, Mrs." Donnelly nodded approvingly. "And what brings you to seek work away from home?" Lily hesitated, glancing at Blackwood, who had remained standing near the door. Miss Thornton's situation is her own to share if she wishes, he said quietly. All that matters is she's qualified and willing to work. Mrs. Donnelly studied them both, her shrewd eyes missing nothing. Fair enough. Hayes, don't you have a ranch to run, Miss Thornton, and I have matters to discuss. Blackwood touched his hat. Ladies, I'll see you at supper. With that, he departed, leaving Lily alone with the formidable housekeeper. Now then, Mrs. Donnelly said, her tone softening, let's speak plainly. A young woman doesn't leave her father's home without serious cause, especially to work on a bachelor's ranch. I need to know what I'm getting into. Lily appreciated the directness. My father disowned me yesterday when I refused to marry Tobias Richardson to settle our debts. He said I was a burden and ordered me to leave. Mr. Blackwood found me on the road to Silver Creek and intervened when I was accosted by some men. He offered me this position when nothing was available in town. Mrs. Donnelly's expression hardened. Jonathan Thornton put his own daughter out. The man's fallen further than I thought. She shook her head. As for Hayes, that sounds like him, always picking up strays and lost causes. I'm neither, Lily said firmly. I'm a capable worker who intends to earn her keep. The older woman smiled for the first time. Good answer. Now, let me show you to your room and then we'll discuss your duties. The bedroom was small but pleasant, located in the east wing of the house with a window overlooking a kitchen garden. A narrow bed dresser washstand and small writing desk comprised the furnishings. This will be your private space, Mrs. Donnelly explained. The men never come into this part of the house. Hayes has the west wing, and I'm next door to you here. You'll take your meals with us in the kitchen, except when Hayes has business guests. Then you'll help me serve in the dining room. Lily set down her carpetbag, overwhelmed by the sudden change in her circumstances. Your wages will be $20 monthly plus room and board, Mrs. Donnelly continued. 1 day off each week, typically Sunday after church, if you're so inclined. Is that acceptable? It was more than Lily had dared hope for. Yes, thank you. Good. Get settled, then meet me in the kitchen. I'll explain your duties while we prepare supper. Left alone, Lily unpacked her meager possessions, arranging them carefully in her new space. The wages Mrs. Donnelly had mentioned would allow her to save significantly, perhaps enough to eventually secure her own future. For the first time since her mother's death, Lily felt a glimmer of genuine hope. Over the next few days, Lily quickly acclimated to life at the Double B. Her duties were demanding but satisfying, helping Mrs. Donnelly manage the large household, preparing meals for the ranch hands, maintaining the household accounts, and organizing supplies. She rose before dawn and worked until after supper, but the tasks were familiar, and both Blackwood and Mrs. Donnelly expressed appreciation for her efficiency. On her fourth morning, Lily was reviewing the pantry inventory when Blackwood appeared in the kitchen doorway. Miss Thornton, do you have a moment? She followed him to a study off the main hall, its walls lined with books and a large desk covered in papers. Mrs. Donnelly mentioned you have experience with accounts, he said, gesturing to the chaos on his desk. I've been attempting to organize these myself, but as you can see, Lily surveyed the scattered ledgers, invoices, and correspondence with a practiced eye. This would benefit from a more systematic approach, she ventured. That's precisely what I was thinking. Would you be willing to add this to your duties? I'd increase your wages to $30 monthly. The sum was generous, and the work suited her skills perfectly. I'd be happy to help, Mr. Blackwood. Excellent. I'll have a proper desk brought in here for you. He hesitated. There's one more matter. I received news from town this morning. Your father has sold the Thornton Ranch to Union Pacific. The words hit Lily like a physical blow. Sold it? But it's been in my mother's family for generations. I'm sorry, Blackwood said quietly. According to my source, he accepted $3,000, far below its value, and departed on yesterday's Easy stage. Lily struggled to process this information. Her father had abandoned their home, their heritage, without even a goodbye. More troubling was the connection to Union Pacific, to Samuel Reeves. What had her father gotten himself involved in? "Thank you for telling me," she managed, proud that her voice remained steady. Blackwood studied her for a moment. "Your father's actions reflect on him, not you, Miss Thornton. Please, remember that." Over the following weeks, Lily immersed herself in her new responsibilities, finding unexpected satisfaction in bringing order to the ranch's administrative chaos. The Double B's operations were more complex than she'd initially realized, with cattle contracts, horse breeding supply management, and various investments to track. Working in Blackwood's study gave her new insights into her employer. His bookshelves held volumes on law, history, and literature, alongside practical manuals on ranching and animal husbandry. Several worn classics, Shakespeare, Dickens, Twain, suggested frequent rereading. Blackwood himself proved to be a fair employer, neither demanding nor critical. He valued her suggestions for improving the ranch's record-keeping and implemented her more efficient supply ordering system without hesitation. Their working relationship was marked by mutual respect, something Lily had rarely experienced from men before. On a crisp October morning, Lily was transferring figures to the main ledger when Mrs. Donnelly entered the study. "Hayes wants you both on the north porch," she said, her expression unusually grave. "Riders coming." From the porch, Lily could see a group approaching 5 men led by the unmistakable figure of Samuel Reeves. Blackwood stood at the railing, his stance deceptively casual, though Lily noted the subtle tension in his shoulders. "Stay behind me," he said quietly as the riders approached. "Reeves is ambitious, not dangerous, but the men he employs can be unpredictable." Reeves dismounted with practiced grace, removing his gloves as he approached the porch. "Blackwood, good morning." His cold gaze slid to Lily. "Miss Thornton, I see you've settled into your new position." "What brings Union Pacific to my doorstep, Reeves?" Blackwood asked, his tone neutral but firm. "The same matter as always. Our surveyors have completed their work on the Thornton property and confirm what we already knew: the most efficient route for our tracks runs directly through the heart of Double B. My answer hasn't changed. I won't sell the water rights or grant an easement that would cut off half my grazing land." Reeves sighed theatrically. "Progress doesn't halt for stubborn men, Blackwood. The railroad is coming to this valley. It will bring prosperity, civilization, access to markets. You're standing in the way of the future." "I'm protecting what's mine," Blackwood countered. "Your most efficient route would destroy this ranch. There are alternative paths just 2 miles east that would affect no one's water access." "At considerable additional expense," Reeves said dismissively. "The board of directors has approved our current plan. I'm authorized to offer you $12,000, a generous sum. The Double B isn't for sale at any price." Reeves's expression hardened. "Then perhaps you should be aware of certain developments. Union Pacific has acquired several outstanding banknotes against your property." Lily saw Blackwood stiffen slightly. "Those loans are current," he said evenly. "All payments have been made on schedule." "For now," Reeves agreed. "But banking conditions can be volatile. Interest rates change. Terms get renegotiated." He gestured to his waiting men. "We've also begun purchasing surrounding properties. Soon, the Double B will be an island in a sea of Union Pacific land." "Is that a threat?" Blackwood's voice remained calm, but Lily could sense his growing anger. "Merely a statement of fact," Reeves replied. "Oh, and Miss Thornton, Your father asked me to convey his regards, should I see you. He's taken a position with our company in Denver. Apparently, he has a talent for identifying persuadable landowners. The casual cruelty of the remark made Lily's stomach clench, but she kept her expression neutral, unwilling to give Reeves the satisfaction of a reaction. I believe we're finished here, Blackwood said coldly. Please remove yourself from my property. Reeves smiled thinly. For now. But I'll return Blackwood. The railroad always gets what it wants. His gaze shifted to Lily once more. Think carefully about which side you're on, Miss Thornton. Family loyalty is such an admirable trait. After they departed, Lily and Blackwood remained on the porch, watching the dust cloud recede. I apologize for Reeves's remarks, Blackwood said finally. He's not above using personal connections as leverage. You have nothing to apologize for, Lily replied. My father made his choices. She hesitated. Mr. Blackwood, is what he said true? About Union Pacific acquiring loans against the Double B. Blackwood nodded grimly. The bank in Denver holds my mortgage. It wouldn't surprise me if Union Pacific has been buying influence there. What will you do? Fight, he said simply. This land isn't just property to me, Miss Thornton. It's a legacy, a responsibility. He turned to face her directly. This situation may become complicated. If you'd prefer to seek employment elsewhere, I would understand. The suggestion stung unexpectedly. Are you dissatisfied with my work? Not at all, Blackwood said quickly. But Reeves's interest in you is concerning. I wouldn't want you caught in the crossfire of this dispute. Lily straightened her shoulders. I'm already involved, Mr. Blackwood. If my father is working for Union Pacific, then I have a personal stake in seeing their tactics exposed. Her voice softened slightly. Besides, I've come to care about the Double B. I'd like to help protect it if you'll allow me. Something shifted in Blackwood's expression, surprise followed by what might have been gratitude. I'd be honored to have your assistance, Miss Thornton. That evening, as Lily was finishing the day's entries in the account books, she discovered a discrepancy in the supply invoices, specifically payments for fencing materials that didn't align with the ranch's inventory records. Further investigation revealed several such anomalies over the past months, all involving the same supplier in Denver. She brought her findings to Blackwood, who frowned deeply as he reviewed the evidence. This suggests someone's been diverting supplies, ordering in the ranch's name, but redirecting the deliveries elsewhere, he said. The question is, who has that authority besides me? Only Fletcher as your foreman, Lily replied, having learned the ranch's management structure. But these orders were signed with your name. Blackwood examined the signatures closely. Good forgeries, but not mine. Someone's been laying groundwork for quite some time. His expression darkened. This has Reeves written all over it. Creating a paper trail to suggest financial mismanagement would strengthen their position if they attempt to call in the mortgage. Can we prove the forgeries? Perhaps, but it would require time we may not have. Blackwood paced the study. We need to move faster, strengthen our position. The other ranchers in the valley face similar threats from Union Pacific. Together, we might stand a better chance. The following day, Blackwood dispatched riders to neighboring ranches, calling a meeting to discuss a unified response to Union Pacific's tactics. For Lily, the days that followed brought increased responsibilities as she gathered documentation of the railroad's questionable practices, evidence they hoped might sway territorial officials. 2 weeks later, ranchers from throughout the valley gathered at the Double B, weather-beaten men with calloused hands and suspicious eyes, each facing their own battles with the encroaching railroad. Lily helped Mrs. Donnelly serve coffee in the main room while Blackwood outlined the situation. Union Pacific isn't just buying land, he explained. They're manipulating bank loans, forging documents, pressuring officials. Alone, we're vulnerable. Together, we might stand a chance. Daniel Weber, a grizzled rancher from the South Valley, spoke up. Blackwood, we all respect what you're trying to do, but you're fighting a losing battle. The railroad's got money and government connections we can't match. And what happens when they control all the water in this valley? Blackwood challenged. When they dictate what price we get for our cattle because they own the only shipping point for 100 miles? The discussion grew heated, with several ranchers expressing reluctance to directly oppose the powerful railroad company. From her position near the doorway, Lily noticed Marcus Bennett, Silver Creek's banker, and Clara Bennett's father watching the proceedings with calculated interest. Though he owned no ranch land, his presence at a meeting of landowners struck her as odd. When Bennett slipped out early, Lily followed discreetly to the porch, where she overheard him speaking quietly to a man she recognized as one of Reeves's associates. 7 of them are wavering, Bennett was saying. Another week of pressure from the bank and they'll fold. Blackwood's the only real problem. The revelation that Bennett was actively working with Union Pacific against the ranchers' interests alarmed Lily. She retreated silently, returning to the kitchen to help Mrs. Donnelly with refreshments while considering how to share this information with Blackwood without raising suspicions. Her opportunity came after the meeting concluded, when most of the ranchers had departed, with promises to consider Blackwood's proposed alliance. She found him in his study reviewing notes from the discussion. Mr. Blackwood, she began carefully, I believe Mr. Bennett may be working with Union Pacific. Blackwood looked up sharply. What makes you say that? She recounted what she'd overheard, watching his expression darken as she spoke. This complicates matters, he said finally. Bennett controls most of the financing in this region. If he's aligned with Reeves, the other ranchers will face even more pressure. There's something else, Lily added hesitantly. During the meeting, I noticed how Mr. Weber kept looking to Bennett before speaking against your proposal. I think their alliance may be more extensive than we realized. Blackwood studied her with new appreciation. You have a keen eye for detail, Miss Thornton. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. We need to move quickly. If Bennett's actively working against us, our time is limited. The following days brought increasing tension to the Double B. Blackwood spent long hours riding the boundaries with his men, concerned about potential incursions from Union Pacific surveyors. Lily immersed herself in the accounts, searching for additional discrepancies that might either help their cause or reveal new threats. Late one evening, as she worked by lamplight in the study, Blackwood returned from a boundary check, his expression grim. Union Pacific men were marking survey stakes on our north pasture, he reported. When Fletcher confronted them, they claimed to have documentation granting them access rights, supposedly signed by me. Lily set down her pen. More forgeries, almost certainly. He sank into a chair opposite her desk. Miss Thornton, I need to ask your opinion on a difficult matter. Surprised by the request, Lily nodded for him to continue. Reeves has proposed a meeting, just the 2 of us, at the Silver Creek Hotel tomorrow. He claims to have a new proposal that would preserve the Double B while accommodating the railroad's needs. Blackwood's blue eyes met hers directly. Do you think I should go? The question caught her off guard. Why would he seek her counsel on such a significant decision? It could be a trap, she ventured cautiously, or simply a delaying tactic while they continue their other efforts. Those were my thoughts as well. He leaned forward slightly. Yet, if there's any chance of a legitimate compromise, I should explore it. The men who work this ranch depend on me for their livelihoods. Lily considered carefully. If you do go, don't go alone. Take Fletcher or Charlie Bear, someone who can witness whatever is said, and perhaps—" She hesitated, then continued, "perhaps have a written counterproposal ready. It demonstrates good faith while maintaining your position." A smile tugged at the corner of Blackwood's mouth. "Sage advice, Miss Thornton. I believe I'll follow it." Their eyes held for a moment longer than strictly necessary, an unspoken acknowledgment passing between them. In that brief exchange, Lily realized their relationship had subtly shifted from employer and employee to something approaching partnership. The following morning, Blackwood departed for Silver Creek, with Fletcher leaving Lily to manage the day's affairs at the ranch. Her duties kept her busy until mid-afternoon, when the distant sound of approaching horses drew her attention. Moving to the window, she expected to see Blackwood returning. Instead, she found Samuel Reeves dismounting in the yard, accompanied by 3 men, including, to her shock, her father, Jonathan Thornton. Mrs. Donnelly appeared at her side. "Trouble," the housekeeper muttered. "And Hayes still in town." Lily straightened her shoulders. "I'll speak with them." "Child, that's not wise." "Someone must," Lily replied firmly. "We can't leave them standing in the yard, and they've clearly timed this visit to coincide with Mr. Blackwood's absence." She moved to the porch, projecting a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Mr. Reeves, this is unexpected." Reeves removed his hat with exaggerated courtesy. "Miss Thornton, I apologize for the unannounced visit. Is Blackwood available?" "Mr. Blackwood is currently in town attending to business," she replied coolly, deliberately avoiding looking at her father, who stood slightly behind Reeves, his expression unreadable. "How unfortunate," Reeves said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. "Perhaps you might convey a message. My associates and I would like permission to survey the creek that runs through the eastern section of the property." "Mr. Blackwood has made his position clear on that matter," Lily replied. "No surveys without his express written consent, which has not been granted." Reeves's smile tightened. "Miss Thornton, surely you understand you have no authority to make such declarations. You're merely a domestic employee." "I am authorized to speak on Mr. Blackwood's behalf in his absence." Lily stated grateful that this was actually true. Blackwood had explicitly granted her this authority the previous week. And his instructions regarding Union Pacific surveyors were quite specific. Her father stepped forward, then his face flushed with familiar anger. "For God's sake, girl, stop being so stubborn. The railroad's coming, whether Blackwood likes it or not. You're just making things harder for everyone." Lily finally met his gaze directly. "Including yourself, father. Is that why you're here to smooth the path for your new employers?" Jonathan's expression twisted. "I'm here because Reeves thought you might listen to reason coming from family. Clearly, I was mistaken." "Miss Thornton," Reeves interjected smoothly, "perhaps we could discuss this more privately." He gestured toward the house. "Your father has some information that might change your perspective on Blackwood's integrity." The implication was clear. They hoped to turn her against Blackwood to exploit her position inside the ranch. The realization hardened her resolve. "Whatever you have to say can be said right here," she replied firmly. "But I should warn you that Mr. Blackwood is expected back momentarily, accompanied by several of his men." It was a bluff, but delivered with enough conviction that Reeves hesitated, glancing toward the road. "Another time, perhaps," he said finally. "Do tell Blackwood we called. Come, Thornton." As they remounted, her father lingered, his expression softening slightly. "Lily, you don't understand what you're involved in. Blackwood isn't the man you think he is. He has history with Union Pacific, history he hasn't shared with you." Before she could respond, Reeves called sharply, Thornton, now! With a last troubled look at his daughter, Jonathan turned his horse and followed Reeves from the yard. Lily remained on the porch long after they'd disappeared from view, her father's parting words echoing in her mind. What had he meant about Blackwood's history with Union Pacific? Was it merely a tactic to sow discord, or was there truth to the insinuation? Her contemplation was interrupted by the sound of approaching riders, this time Blackwood and Fletcher returning from town. One look at their grim expressions told Lily the meeting with Reeves had not gone well. "Miss Thornton," Blackwood acknowledged, dismounting stiffly. "Any difficulties in my absence?" "Reeves was here," she replied, "with 3 men, including my father." Blackwood's expression darkened. "What did they want?" "Permission to survey the East Creek. When I refused, my father suggested you have some history with Union Pacific that I should know about." A complex emotion flickered across Blackwood's face. "I see. We should discuss this inside." In the privacy of his study, Blackwood poured 2 small glasses of whiskey, offering one to Lily. When she hesitated, he said quietly, "I think you'll want this for the conversation ahead." The unexpected gesture, treating her as an equal rather than an employee, underscored the seriousness of the situation. Lily accepted the glass, taking a small sip, as Blackwood gathered his thoughts. "What Reeves and your father alluded to is partially true," he finally said. "I do have history with Union Pacific, history I'm not proud of." Lily waited silently, sensing his struggle to find the right words. "Before inheriting the Double B, I worked briefly for the railroad as a land assessor," Blackwood continued. "My job was to evaluate properties along proposed routes and determine fair purchase prices." His expression hardened. "What I discovered was that Union Pacific had no interest in fairness. They deliberately undervalued land, threatened owners, created false documentation, whatever it took to secure rights of way at minimal cost." "You left because of this?" Lily ventured. Blackwood nodded grimly. "After witnessing them drive an elderly couple from land they'd worked for 40 years. The wife died that winter in the squalid town room they could afford with Union Pacific's generous payment." He took a swallow of whiskey. "I resigned immediately and returned here to take over the ranch after my uncle's death. Reeves has never forgiven what he considers my betrayal. And now he's using my father against you," Lily said softly. "Against both of us," Blackwood corrected. "Jonathan is a pawn in Reeves's game, useful for now because of his connection to you, but ultimately expendable." Lily absorbed this information, fitting it into the complex picture that was emerging. What happened in town today, Reeves's compromise, was no compromise at all, merely a slightly longer timeline for the same outcome. When I refused, he became explicit about his next steps. Blackwood's jaw tightened. "He's arranged for the territorial bank examiners to review Bennett's operations next week. They'll find irregularities in my mortgage, which will then be called due immediately." "Can they do that?" "With enough money and influence, yes." Blackwood met her eyes directly. "Miss Thornton, the situation is becoming increasingly dangerous. I would understand completely if you wished to distance yourself." Lily straightened in her chair. "Mr. Blackwood, when I accepted this position, I committed to helping manage this ranch. That includes defending it against threats." She set down her glass with quiet determination. "I'm not going anywhere." The intensity in Blackwood's gaze made her heart quicken. "Lily," he said softly, using her given name for the first time. "You should know that having you here these past weeks has been far more meaningful than I anticipated." The unexpected intimacy of the moment was shattered by an urgent pounding on the front door. Charlie Bear's voice called out, "Boss fire in the north pasture. Through the study window, they could see an ominous orange glow against the darkening sky. Blackwood was already moving, grabbing his coat and hat. "Gather the men," he ordered as Fletcher appeared in the doorway. "Every available hand. If that fire reaches the dry creek bed, we could lose half the ranch." As Lily watched Blackwood stride toward the gathering danger, Mrs. Donnelly appeared beside her, face grim. "This is no accident," the housekeeper said quietly. "Not with Reeves in town." Lily nodded, a cold certainty settling in her stomach. The battle for the Double B had just escalated from threats to open warfare, and the next moves would determine whether everything Hayes Blackwood had built would survive or be consumed in the flames. The North Pasture fire burned through the night. Every able-bodied person at the Double B joined the fight, digging fire breaks, beating back flames with wet blankets, working alongside the ranch hands in a desperate struggle to save the land. Even Mrs. Donnelly coordinated water brigades, her usual decorum forgotten in the face of emergency. Lily found herself hauling water from the creek, her arms aching and lungs burning from the smoke, yet driven by a fierce determination. This was no longer just Blackwood's fight, it had become her own. Dawn broke to reveal the fire finally contained, though at significant cost. Nearly 100 acres of prime grazing land lay blackened and smoldering. More concerning was the strategic location of the burn directly adjacent to the creek that provided water for the eastern section of the ranch, the same area Reeves had asked to survey. Blackwood stood on a rise, overlooking the damage, his face soot-streaked and grim, when Lily brought him coffee. He accepted the cup with a grateful nod, his exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "It could have been worse," she offered quietly. "This time," he agreed, taking a long swallow. "But their message is clear. If I won't sell willingly, they'll destroy the ranch piece by piece." Lily studied the burned landscape. "The timing was deliberate, just after Reeves visited, and you rejected his offer. And targeting this specific section, the most crucial water access for the herd." Blackwood's jaw tightened. "They're escalating, forcing my hand. What will you do?" Before he could answer, Fletcher approached at a gallop. "Riders coming," he reported tersely. "Judge Parker and the sheriff, looks like." Judge William Parker was the circuit court judge for the territory, a formidable figure, known for his rigid adherence to the law. His arrival with Sheriff Taylor suggested official business of the most serious nature. Blackwood handed his cup to Lily. "Have Mrs. Donnelly prepare refreshments. This won't be a social call." In the study, Judge Parker wasted no time on pleasantries. "Blackwood's serious allegations have been brought against you. I'm here to investigate before formal charges are filed." "What allegations?" Blackwood asked, his tone carefully neutral, though Lily, serving coffee from the doorway, could see the tension in his shoulders. "Arson." Parker removed a document from his coat. "Union Pacific claims you deliberately set fire to your own land to prevent their legally authorized survey work and to fraudulently claim insurance compensation." The absurdity of the accusation momentarily stunned them both into silence. "That's preposterous," Blackwood finally said. "Why would I burn my own grazing land? My cattle depend on that pasture." "According to the complaint, you've taken out substantial insurance on the property, recently well above its market value." Parker studied Blackwood intently. "Is that true?" "I increased coverage last spring after expanding the herd, yes. Standard business practice, not evidence of criminal intent." Sheriff Taylor, a stocky man with a perpetually suspicious expression, spoke up. "We have a witness who claims you were discussing fire containment strategies with your men yesterday afternoon before the fire started." "We discuss fire protocols regularly. This is dry country, Sheriff." Judge Parker frowned. "There's more. The bank in Denver has filed notice that your mortgage is being reviewed for possible fraud. Apparently, there are discrepancies in your loan documentation. Lily's hands tightened around the coffee tray. The pieces were falling into place, a coordinated attack on multiple fronts. First, discredit Blackwood with criminal allegations, then undermine his financial standing. "If I may speak, Your Honor," she said, stepping forward despite the impropriety of inserting herself into a conversation between men. All three turned to her with varying degrees of surprise. "Miss Thornton, this is a legal matter," Parker began, but Blackwood interrupted. "Miss Thornton manages my accounts. Her insights may be relevant." Parker hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Proceed." Lily set down the tray and retrieved a ledger from Blackwood's desk. "For the past month, I've been investigating financial discrepancies at Mr. Blackwood's request. We discovered multiple forged orders for supplies, falsified signatures, and other irregularities that suggest a deliberate attempt to create the appearance of financial mismanagement." She opened the ledger to marked pages. "Here are the original documents alongside the forgeries. Note the subtle differences in the signatures and the altered amounts." Parker examined the evidence, his frown deepening. "This is concerning, but it doesn't directly address the arson allegation." "It establishes a pattern, Your Honor," Lily countered. "Someone is systematically attempting to undermine Mr. Blackwood's reputation and business. The fire follows this pattern." "Someone like who, Miss Thornton?" Sheriff Taylor asked skeptically. "Union Pacific has the most to gain from Mr. Blackwood's downfall," she replied steadily. "They've made no secret of their desire to acquire this land for their railway." Judge Parker's expression remained impassive, but something in his eyes suggested he was considering her words. "Miss Thornton, what is your position here exactly?" "I manage the household and assist with the ranch accounts." "She's also Jonathan Thornton's daughter," the sheriff added pointedly. "The same Thornton who now works for Union Pacific and who was seen at the Silver Creek Hotel with Reeves yesterday." The implication was clear. Her loyalty might be compromised by family ties. Lily felt a flush of anger, but kept her voice level. "My father and I are estranged, Your Honor. He disowned me when I refused an arranged marriage he tried to force upon me to settle his debts. Mr. Blackwood offered me respectable employment when I had nowhere else to turn." Parker studied her for a long moment, then turned back to Blackwood. "I'll take this evidence under consideration. No formal charges will be filed pending further investigation." He rose to leave. But Blackwood tread carefully. Union Pacific has considerable influence in the territorial government. After they departed, Lily and Blackwood remained in the study, the weight of their situation hanging heavy between them. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Your intervention was unexpected, but timely." "And it was only the truth," Lily replied, "though I fear it's only bought us time, not resolution." Blackwood nodded grimly. "Parker's a fair man, but the sheriff is in Bennett's pocket, and Bennett is in Reeves's. We need to strengthen our position before they make their next move." "The Founders' Day celebration is next weekend in Silver Creek," Lily noted. "Everyone in the county will attend. It might be an opportunity to rally support among the other ranchers." "A public forum," Blackwood considered. "Risky, but potentially effective." He hesitated. "Would you accompany me, Miss Thornton? Your perspective could be valuable." The invitation caught her off guard. Attending a social function with her employer would inevitably spark gossip, yet the strategic advantage was undeniable. "If you believe it would help the ranch, then yes." Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes, a warmth that went beyond professional appreciation. "I do, and I would value your company." The brief admission hung between them, neither quite ready to acknowledge its implications. The week leading up to Founders' Day brought increased tension to the Double B. Union Pacific surveyors were spotted repeatedly near the ranch boundaries, retreating only when confronted by Blackwood's men. In town, rumors circulated that Union Pacific planned a major announcement at the celebration, something that would change the future of Silver Creek forever. On the morning of the event, Mrs. Donnelly surprised Lily with a package on her bed, a new dress of deep blue fabric with modest lace trim. Mr. Blackwood ordered it from Denver. The housekeeper explained, her expression softening at Lily's shock. Said you'd need something appropriate for representing the Double B today. The gesture both touched and troubled Lily. Such a gift from an employer pushed the boundaries of propriety, yet the practical necessity was undeniable. Her two worn dresses were hardly suitable for a formal social occasion. When she emerged in the new dress, her hair arranged in a simple but elegant style, Blackwood was waiting in the foyer. His sharp intake of breath was barely audible, but the admiration in his eyes spoke volumes. "You look lovely, Miss Thornton," he said simply. "Thank you for the dress," she replied. "It was thoughtful, if unnecessary." "On the contrary," Blackwood countered, helping her into the waiting buggy. "Today, you represent not just yourself, but the Double B. I want everyone to see you as I do a woman of intelligence and dignity." The sincerity in his voice stirred something within Lily that she wasn't yet ready to name. Silver Creek was transformed for the celebration. Bunting decorated the buildings, a dance floor had been constructed in the town square, and tables laden with food lined the street. Despite the festive atmosphere, Lily noticed the undercurrent of tension. Townspeople gathered in small clusters, conversations pausing when Blackwood approached. Their arrival caused a stir. Hayes Blackwood was a significant figure in the county, and his appearance with Lily at his side sparked immediate speculation. Clara Bennett, the banker's daughter, watched their entrance with thinly veiled resentment. At 25, Clara had made no secret of her interest in Blackwood over the years, viewing him as the most eligible bachelor in the territory. Judge Parker approached them immediately, his expression grave. "Blackwood, a word." He led them aside, lowering his voice. "Reeves has been meeting with the territorial governor. Whatever he's planning today has official sanction." Before Blackwood could respond, a commotion at the far end of the square drew everyone's attention. Samuel Reeves had arrived with an entourage that included not only his usual associates, but also several distinguished-looking gentlemen in formal attire. Among them, Lily recognized the territorial governor, and to her shock, her father now dressed in a fine new suit that marked his elevation in status. Mayor Collins quickly ushered the group to a hastily prepared platform. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we are honored to have distinguished guests joining our humble celebration. Please welcome Governor Struthers and the directors of Union Pacific Railroad." Polite applause rippled through the crowd as Reeves stepped forward, his expression one of practiced benevolence. "Citizens of Silver Creek," he began, "today marks a historic moment for your community. Union Pacific is pleased to announce that Silver Creek has been selected as a major hub on our new western route." The crowd murmured with excitement. A railway hub meant economic growth, increased property values, and expanded opportunities for local businesses. "Construction will begin next month," Reeves continued, "creating hundreds of jobs. Within a year, Silver Creek will be transformed from a frontier outpost to a modern city with direct rail connections to Denver, Chicago, and beyond." Enthusiastic applause greeted this vision, particularly from the town merchants. Blackwood remained stoic beside Lily, watching Reeves carefully. To facilitate this progress, Union Pacific has acquired key properties throughout the region. Reeves unfurled a large map showing the planned railway route cutting directly through the heart of the Double B. We've negotiated fair prices with most landowners, but a few stubborn holdouts remain. His gaze settled meaningfully on Blackwood. Those who oppose progress risk being left behind. The territorial government has authorized the use of eminent domain where necessary for this vital infrastructure project. The governor stepped forward to confirm this pronouncement, lending it the full weight of official authority. "Eminent domain," a voice called out. "You mean taking people's land whether they want to sell or not?" "With fair compensation," Reeves answered smoothly, "as determined by impartial government assessors." Lily felt Blackwood tense beside her. The impartial assessors would undoubtedly be appointed by the same government officials who stood to benefit from Union Pacific's largesse. "Furthermore," Reeves continued, "we are proud to announce the establishment of New Silver City, a modern community to be built adjacent to the current town with planned streets, a grand hotel, and all the amenities befitting a railway hub." This revelation caused even more excitement until the implications became clear. New Silver City would eventually supplant the existing town, leaving current property owners with devalued investments unless they sold quickly to Union Pacific. Blackwood stepped forward, his voice carrying across the square. "And who benefits most from these generous arrangements? Reeves, Union Pacific stockholders, or perhaps those government officials and bankers who have been quietly acquiring options on the properties you've targeted?" A hush fell over the crowd. Reeves's smile tightened. "Progress benefits everyone, Blackwood, but some are too short-sighted to see it." "What I see is theft disguised as progress," Blackwood replied evenly. "Eminent domain exists for genuine public necessity, not corporate profit." Governor Struthers intervened. "Mr. Blackwood, the territorial legislature has determined that railway expansion is indeed a public necessity. Your personal interests cannot stand in the way of the greater good." "And what of water rights?" Blackwood challenged. "Union Pacific's planned route cuts off access to the watershed that supports every ranch in this valley. Without that water, the cattle industry that built this community will die." This struck home with the ranchers in the crowd who murmured their agreement. Even some townspeople looked troubled by this perspective. Reeves moved to regain control. "Alternative water access will be provided at reasonable rates. Union Pacific is a responsible corporate citizen." "Responsible?" Blackwood's laugh held no humor. "Like when you set fire to my north pasture to pressure me into selling." Gasps rippled through the gathering. Reeves's face darkened with anger. "That's a slanderous accusation, Blackwood. In fact, evidence suggests you set that fire yourself for insurance fraud, a matter currently under investigation." The confrontation might have escalated further had Judge Parker not stepped between them. "Gentlemen, this is hardly the venue for such disputes. Legal matters will be settled in court, not at a community celebration." The tension remained palpable as the men retreated to opposite sides of the square. Music resumed an awkward attempt to restore the festive atmosphere, but the damage was done. The community had witnessed the open declaration of war between Blackwood and Union Pacific. "That could have gone better," Lily remarked quietly as they moved away from the crowd. "Or worse," Blackwood countered. "At least people are beginning to question Reeves's motives." They found temporary refuge near the refreshment tables where Mrs. Winters approached with punch. "Quite a performance," the boarding house keeper commented. "Reeves has half the town believing they'll be millionaires by Christmas." "And the other half?" Lily asked. "Wondering what the catch is," Mrs. Winters replied shrewdly. "Not everyone's forgotten how the railroad treated farmers back east. Take your land for pennies, charge you dollars to ship your goods." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Jonathan Thornton, who approached with obvious discomfort. Up close, Lily could see that despite his new clothes, her father's face showed the ravages of continued drinking, perhaps even more than before. "Lily," he began awkwardly, "you look well." "Father," she acknowledged coolly, "your new position seems to agree with you." Jonathan flushed. "I came to talk sense into you. Blackwood's fighting a losing battle. When Union Pacific takes his land, and you'll be without position or protection again." Blackwood stepped closer to Lily, his presence reassuring. "Miss Thornton's future is secure regardless of what happens to the Double B," he said firmly. "I've ensured that." Jonathan's eyes narrowed as he glanced between them. "So, the rumors are true, then. My daughter has become more than just your housekeeper." "Father," Lily's cheeks burned with indignation, "Mr. Blackwood has been nothing but respectful and honorable, unlike some men I could name." "Reeves wants to speak with you," Jonathan continued, ignoring her rebuke. "He's offering you a position with Union Pacific, a fresh start away from all this." He gestured vaguely toward Blackwood. "You have your mother's mind for figures. The railroad could use someone like you." The suggestion that she would betray Blackwood to work for the very company trying to destroy him left Lily momentarily speechless with outrage. "I believe Miss Thornton has made her loyalties clear," Blackwood said quietly. "Perhaps you should return to your new employer." Something like shame flickered across Jonathan's face. "Lily, there are things you don't understand about Blackwood, about his past with Union Pacific." "I know everything I need to know," she replied firmly. "Mr. Blackwood has been honest with me, which is more than I can say for you." Jonathan's expression hardened. "Then you've made your choice." He turned to leave, then paused. "When this ends badly, and it will, don't come crying to me." The encounter left Lily shaken, though she struggled not to show it. Blackwood guided her gently away from curious onlookers toward a quieter corner of the square. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. "Yes," she said, then more honestly. "No, I knew he'd aligned himself with Reeves, but seeing him like that, so bitter, yet so convinced he's right." "He's being used," Blackwood said. "Reeves keeps him close because of his connection to you. Once that leverage is no longer valuable—" "I know." Lily straightened her shoulders. "We should rejoin the celebration. People are watching." The afternoon progressed with superficial pleasantries overlaying deepening community divisions. Those with potential business interests in the railway expansion gravitated toward Reeves and his associates, while ranchers and farmers increasingly sought out Blackwood, concerned about the implications for their water rights. As evening approached, lanterns were lit, and the band began playing for dancing. To maintain appearances of normalcy, Blackwood led Lily onto the dance floor for a waltz. The propriety of an employer dancing with his housekeeper was questionable, but given the day's events, such concerns seemed trivial. "You dance well," Lily observed, surprised by his grace. "My mother insisted," Blackwood replied, a rare smile softening his features. "Said a man should be as comfortable in a ballroom as on horseback." "She sounds like a wise woman." She was. His expression grew distant. "She and my father built the Double B from nothing. When raiders killed them, I swore I'd protect their legacy at any cost." The personal revelation offered so simply touched Lily deeply. "And you have." "Until now." His grip on her waist tightened fractionally. "Reeves has the law, the government, and the money on his side. I'm running out of options." "We'll find a way," Lily said with more confidence than she felt. "The truth must count for something, even in this territory." As they continued dancing, Lily noticed Clara Bennett watching them with undisguised hostility. Later, as Lily visited the refreshment table alone, Clara approached. "Quite the performance," the banker's daughter said coldly. First, his housekeeper, now dancing as if you're his equal. People are talking, you know. People always talk, Miss Bennet, Lily replied evenly, particularly when they have little else to occupy their minds. Clara's perfect features contorted briefly with anger. You won't last, you know. Once Blackwood loses the ranch and he'll have no further use for you. Men like him don't marry their servants. The barb struck home, though Lily maintained her composure. Mr. Blackwood's battle is about principle, not profit. Something you and your father might consider. My father understands progress, Clara snapped. Union Pacific will make Silver Creek important. Those who cooperate will prosper. Those who resist— She let the implication hang. Is that a threat, Miss Bennet? A prediction. Clara's smile was venomous. Enjoy your moment in the sun, Miss Thornton. It won't last. The exchange left Lily unsettled, but she had little time to dwell on it. As darkness fell, the celebration culminated in a display of fireworks, during which Blackwood received an urgent message from Fletcher. They needed to return to the ranch immediately. The ride back to the Double B was tense, with Blackwood pushing the horses harder than usual. Fletcher's message had been cryptic but alarming. Trouble at the ranch. Come quick. They crested the final hill to a sight that stopped Lily's heart. The main barn engulfed in flames, ranch hands working desperately to control the blaze and move livestock to safety. Even from a distance, they could hear the panicked cries of horses trapped inside. Blackwood leapt from the buggy before it fully stopped racing toward the inferno. Lily followed, gathering her skirts and running toward Mrs. Donnelly, who was organizing a water line from the well. What happened? Lily demanded, taking her place in the line. Union Pacific men, the housekeeper replied grimly. 6 of them rode in just after sunset, fired shots in the air to scatter the hands, then torched the barn. Charlie Bear recognized one as the man who's been working with your father. The confirmation that Union Pacific, possibly with her father's knowledge, had escalated to outright destruction of property struck Lily like a physical blow. This was no longer just business tactics. It was criminal violence. For hours they fought the fire, but the dry timber of the old barn burned too hot and fast. By midnight, it had collapsed entirely, leaving only smoldering ruins and the grim task of accounting for losses. 2 prized breeding horses had perished, along with valuable equipment and winter feed stores. In the gray hours before dawn, Lily found Blackwood standing alone among the ashes, his face streaked with soot and something deeper, a grief that transcended material loss. My father built this barn, he said without turning, sensing her presence. I helped him raise these beams when I was 12 years old. Lily stepped beside him, the acrid smell of burned wood stinging her eyes. I'm so sorry, Hayes. It was the first time she had used his given name, the formality between them dissolving in the face of such deliberate destruction. This is just the beginning, he continued quietly. Reeves wants to break me to make an example for the other holdouts. He'll keep coming until there's nothing left. Or until he's stopped, Lily countered. This was criminal arson. Judge Parker can't ignore such blatant lawlessness. Unless it can't be proven. Hayes turned to face her, his blue eyes haunted. Our men saw the attackers, but who will believe them against Union Pacific's denials? Without concrete evidence, it's our word against theirs. The hopelessness in his voice frightened Lily more than the fire itself. Hayes Blackwood had always been a pillar of strength, of certainty. To see him wavering now— Then we find evidence, she said firmly. Documents, witnesses, something that exposes Reeves's methods for what they are. Hayes studied her face in the gray dawn light. You still believe we can win this fight? It wasn't a question, but Lily answered anyway. I believe in fighting what's right regardless of the odds. I thought you did too. Something shifted in his expression, resolve returning steel beneath the exhaustion. I do. He reached for her hand, an unprecedented gesture that sent warmth through her despite their grim circumstances. Thank you, Lily, for reminding me what matters. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings that neither was ready to fully acknowledge. Then Mrs. Donnelly's voice broke the spell, calling them to the house where Judge Parker had arrived, roused from his bed in Silver Creek by news of the fire. In the study, Parker listened gravely to accounts from the ranch hands who had witnessed the attack. Charlie Bear was particularly adamant, identifying one attacker as Wilson, a man known to work directly for Reeves. "This is a serious accusation," Parker said when they'd finished. "Arson is a hanging offense in this territory." "Then you'll arrest Wilson and his accomplices," Hayes pressed. Parker's expression was troubled. "I'll issue warrants for questioning, but Blackwood, you know how this works. Union Pacific will claim these men were nowhere near the Double B. They'll have witnesses placing them in town all evening. So they get away with destroying my property, with killing my horses. Not necessarily. I've been watching Union Pacific's methods since you brought those financial discrepancies to my attention. This fire may be the overreach we needed." Parker leaned forward. "I've written to the federal marshal in Denver. If we can document a pattern of intimidation and criminal activity, the federal government might intervene." It was a small hope, but better than none. After Parker departed, promising to begin his investigation immediately, Hayes called a meeting of all ranch hands. Standing on the porch steps, his expression grave, yet determined, he addressed the assembled men. "What happened last night was a deliberate attack not just on our property, but on our right to determine our own future," he began. "Union Pacific believes they can intimidate us into submission. They're wrong." A murmur of agreement ran through the group. "From this moment forward, the Double B is on war footing. No one rides alone. Armed guards on all boundaries. Anyone approaching who isn't known to us is stopped and questioned." Hayes paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces before him. "I won't ask any man to risk his life for this fight. Anyone who wishes to seek employment elsewhere can do so with my blessing and a month's wages." Not a single hand raised. Instead, Fletcher stepped forward. "We're with you, boss. This ranch is our home, too." The loyalty of these men, some of whom had worked the Double B for decades, visibly moved Hayes. "Thank you," he said simply. "We have hard days ahead, but together we'll hold what's ours." As the men dispersed to their assigned duties, Hayes turned to Lily. "I need you to do something that may be difficult," he said quietly. "Whatever you need. Go through every document we have. Contracts, correspondence, anything related to Union Pacific. Look for patterns, inconsistencies, anything that might suggest fraudulent practices. Judge Parker needs evidence beyond our testimonies." Lily nodded. "I'll start immediately." "There's more." Hayes hesitated. "Your father's involvement troubles me. He may have information that could be vital. Would you be willing to approach him to try to learn what he knows about Reeves's operations?" The request caught Lily off guard. "You want me to spy on my father?" "I want you to give him a chance to do the right thing," Hayes corrected gently. "Jonathan may be misguided, but I don't believe he's evil. If he knew the full extent of Reeves's methods—" Lily considered this. Despite everything, her father was still her father. If there was any chance he might help them help her, she had to try. "I'll go to town tomorrow," she decided. "Mrs. Winters will know where he's staying." That evening, after a day of strengthening the ranch's defenses and beginning the painful cleanup of the barn ruins, Lily sat alone in her room, writing in the small journal she kept hidden beneath her mattress. The events of recent weeks had transformed her life so completely that sometimes she barely recognized herself. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Opening it, she found Hayes standing there, his expression troubled. "I apologize for disturbing you so late," he said, "but there's something you should know before you go to town tomorrow." Lily invited him to enter a significant breach of propriety, but these were hardly normal circumstances. Hayes remained near the door, maintaining a respectful distance. "Judge Parker sent word," he continued. "Union Pacific has filed formal charges against me, not just for the alleged insurance fraud, but now for the assault and intimidation of their surveyors." "That's absurd," Lily exclaimed. "You've never—" "It's their word against mine," Hayes interrupted grimly. "And they have witnesses, including your father." The revelation landed like a physical blow. "My father is testifying against you, claiming you attacked Union Pacific workers." Hayes nodded, his expression somber. "According to Parker, Jonathan has signed an affidavit stating he personally witnessed me threaten Reeves with bodily harm during a survey attempt." "That's a lie," Lily whispered, shock giving way to cold anger. "He wasn't even present during any confrontations." "Reeves is building his case carefully. If I'm convicted of these charges, the double B will be forfeit, regardless of the eminent domain proceedings." Hayes ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "Lily, your planned visit to your father has become more complicated and potentially more dangerous. Perhaps we should reconsider." Lily squared her shoulders, resolve hardening within her. "No, I need to confront him with this. If there's any shred of decency left in him, any remnant of the father I once knew, and if there isn't." The question hung between them, heavy with implication. "Then I'll have my answer," she said softly. "And so will you." Hayes studied her face, admiration evident in his eyes. "You're a remarkable woman, Lily Thornton." Before she could respond, the sound of hoofbeats approaching at speed drew their attention to the window. A rider was galloping toward the house, his urgency evident even in the darkness. "Something's wrong," Hayes said, already moving toward the door. They reached the porch as Charlie Bear dismounted, his expression grim. "Boss just got word from town. Sheriff Taylor's deputized 20 men. They're riding here at first light, with warrants for your arrest and orders to seize the ranch as evidence." The news hit like a thunderbolt. Legal processes that should have taken weeks were being compressed into days through Union Pacific's influence. They're not even pretending to follow proper procedure anymore. Hayes said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "There's more," Charlie continued reluctantly. "Judge Parker's been removed from the circuit by order of the governor. New judge arriving from Denver tomorrow, Judge Bennett." Marcus Bennett's brother, Lily realized aloud. They've rigged the entire process. Hayes was silent for a long moment, the weight of their predicament settling over them all. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly calm. "Charlie, ride to the Peterson place, then Weber's and Lancaster's. Tell them what's happening. Ask if they'll stand with us." He turned to Fletcher, who had joined them on the porch. "Get the men ready. Anyone who doesn't want to be here when the sheriff arrives should leave now. No one will think less of them." As the men hurried to comply, Lily touched Hayes's arm. "What are you planning?" His blue eyes met hers, determination and regret mingling in their depths. "Something I never wanted: armed resistance to legal authority. If we surrender now, everything is lost." The implications were staggering. This was no longer just a property dispute. It was approaching open rebellion. The consequences could include prison or worse. "Hayes," Lily said softly, "think carefully. This crosses a line that can't be uncrossed." "I know." His face was etched with the gravity of the decision. That's why I want you to go to town tonight under Charlie's escort. You can't be here when the sheriff arrives. Your connection to me is already compromising enough without adding armed resistance to the charges." "I won't leave," Lily said firmly. "Not now. Whatever happens, we face it together." Hayes looked as though he might argue further, but something in her expression must have conveyed her resolve. Instead, he covered her hand with his own, where it rested on his arm. "Together, then," he agreed quietly. "God help us all." As they stood on the porch of the embattled ranch, the weight of impending confrontation settling over them, Lily understood that by morning, the future of the Double B and everyone connected to it would be irrevocably altered. The line between justice and law had blurred, leaving them with impossible choices, and the certainty that whatever path they chose, innocence had already been the first casualty in Union Pacific's relentless march westward. Dawn broke with ominous clarity over the Double B, the rising sun illuminating a ranch transformed overnight into a fortress. Hayes had positioned men strategically around the property atop the main house behind the corral fences within the tree line bordering the approach road. Not to attack, he'd emphasized repeatedly, but to demonstrate resolve and force a negotiation rather than a simple surrender. Inside the house, Lily had spent the night helping Mrs. Donnelly prepare provisions and first aid supplies, neither woman acknowledging aloud the grim implications of such preparations. Now, as the first golden rays streaked across the valley, Lily found Hayes on the front porch, rifle in hand, surveying the ranch with the focused intensity of a man calculating odds. "The Peterson brothers arrived an hour ago," he informed her without turning. "Weber and Lancaster are bringing their men too. 15 additional guns all told." "Is that enough?" Lily asked quietly, handing him coffee. Hayes's mouth tightened. "Against 20 deputies, and whatever men Reeves brings, perhaps not. But it might make them reconsider a direct assault." The calm way he discussed potential bloodshed sent a chill through Lily. There must be another way. If we could reach the federal marshal in Denver, we've sent 3 riders on different routes. If any get through Union Pacific's patrols, it'll still take days for help to arrive. Hayes finally turned to face her, the morning light accentuating the exhaustion etched on his features. "By then, this will be over one way or another." The sound of approaching riders ended their conversation. Fletcher appeared at the corner of the house, rifle ready. "Boss, it's Judge Parker riding alone." Hayes straightened, surprise evident in his expression. "Let him through." Parker approached at a steady pace, hands visible to show peaceful intent. He dismounted stiffly at the porch steps, his lined face grave beneath his wide-brimmed hat. "Blackwood," he acknowledged. "Miss Thornton, I see you're preparing for trouble." "Preparing to defend what's rightfully mine," Hayes replied evenly. "I thought you'd been removed from jurisdiction." "I have officially." Parker glanced at the armed men visible around the property. "This isn't the way, Blackwood. You can't win against territorial authority, no matter how corrupt. What would you have me do? Surrender everything my family built to thieves hiding behind legal documents?" Parker sighed heavily. "I'd have you live to fight another day. That's why I'm here unofficially, to offer an alternative." He produced a folded paper from his coat. "This is a federal writ transferring your case to the jurisdiction of the U.S. Circuit Court in Denver. I telegraphed Judge Morrison yesterday before my removal became official. He's an honest man with no ties to the railroad interests." Hope flickered briefly in Lily's chest, but Hayes remained wary. "How does this help us today? Sheriff Taylor won't honor a federal writ if the governor's backing Union Pacific." "He must legally," Parker countered. "And more importantly, this creates complications that Reeves and his allies can't simply override. Federal jurisdiction means federal marshals, federal procedures. Buying time, Hayes realized. Precisely. Parker's expression hardened. Time for the evidence we've been gathering to reach the proper authorities. Time for the federal government to recognize that Union Pacific is abusing its charter powers. What evidence? Lily asked. Parker turned to her. For the past month, I've been quietly documenting irregularities in Union Pacific's land acquisitions throughout the territory, forged documents, intimidation tactics, conflicts of interest involving territorial officials. Your financial records were the final piece I needed. Hayes studied the judge thoughtfully. Why risk your position to help us? Because I've spent 30 years upholding the law in this territory. Parker replied simply. What Reeves is doing makes a mockery of justice. I won't stand by while corporate interests corrupt our legal system. The distant sound of many horses approaching interrupted their conversation. They're coming sooner than expected, Parker said grimly. Blackwood, I need your word you won't start shooting. That would undermine everything we're trying to accomplish. Hayes hesitated, clearly torn between instinct and strategy. And if they refuse to honor your writ, if they try to take the ranch by force, then you fall back to defensive positions only, Parker insisted. Make them the aggressors. Every witness account, every piece of evidence showing Union Pacific's overreach matters. After a moment of internal struggle, Hayes nodded. We'll play it your way, Judge, for now. The approaching party emerged from the tree-line Sheriff Taylor at the front, flanked by deputies, and a cluster of men Lily recognized as Union Pacific employees. Behind them rode Samuel Reeves, and to her dismay, her father. Get the men to hold their positions, Hayes ordered Fletcher quietly. No one fires without my direct command. Sheriff Taylor halted his group at a cautious distance, raising a hand. Hayes Blackwood, I have warrants for your arrest on charges of arson, fraud, and threatening Union Pacific personnel. Surrender peacefully, and order your men to put down their weapons. Hayes stepped forward, Parker beside him. Sheriff Judge Parker has a federal writ transferring jurisdiction of this matter to the U.S. Circuit Court in Denver. Taylor's expression registered surprise, quickly masked by annoyance. Parker's been removed from the territorial bench. He has no authority here. This writ was issued before my removal, Parker called back, holding up the document. Under federal law, it takes precedence over territorial proceedings. You know this, Taylor. The sheriff conferred hastily with Reeves, whose face darkened visibly even at this distance. After a heated exchange, Taylor turned back to them. I'll need to examine this so-called writ. Send one man forward unarmed, Hayes replied. After another consultation, a deputy dismounted and approached cautiously. Parker handed him the document which the man carried back to Taylor and Reeves. Long minutes passed as they reviewed the writ, Reeves gesturing angrily while Taylor seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, the sheriff rode forward alone to the edge of the yard. The writ appears properly executed, he admitted reluctantly. However, I'm instructed to inform you that Union Pacific is filing an immediate appeal with the territorial governor challenging federal jurisdiction. They can appeal all they want, Parker replied. The law is clear. Until a federal judge rules otherwise, this ranch and Mr. Blackwood remain under federal protection. Taylor's mustache twitched with frustration. You've bought yourself time, Blackwood, nothing more. When Judge Bennett arrives this afternoon, Judge Bennett has no authority in this matter now, Parker interrupted. And I suggest you remember your oath to uphold the law, sheriff, not railroad interests. The standoff continued for several tense moments before Taylor finally raised his hand in reluctant concession. We're withdrawing for now, but this isn't over, Blackwood. Not by a long shot. As the sheriff's party turned to leave, Jonathan Thornton broke formation, urging his horse forward, despite Reeves's visible objection. "Lily," he called, "this is your last chance. Come with us now. When the federal writ is overturned, and it will be anyone still at the Double B, will face charges of obstruction and conspiracy." The public appeal, clearly calculated to undermine Hayes's position, ignited Lily's anger. "Is that before or after you perjure yourself with false testimony against Mr. Blackwood?" she called back. Jonathan flinched as if struck. "I'm trying to save you." "No, father. You're trying to save yourself, as always." Lily's voice carried clearly across the yard. "I've seen the affidavit you signed. We both know it contains nothing but lies." Her father's face contorted with a complex mixture of emotions. For a moment, she thought he might ride forward, might try one last time to reach her. Instead, he turned his horse abruptly and rejoined the departing group without another word. As they disappeared into the trees, the tension that had gripped the ranch slowly dissipated. Men lowered rifles, exchanged relieved glances. Hayes turned to Parker with grudging respect. "That bought us time, but how much?" "A few days at most," Parker admitted. "Reeves will pressure the governor to intervene, claiming economic necessity overrides federal jurisdiction in territorial matters. It's a weak argument legally, but with enough political pressure. So we're still fighting a losing battle," Hayes concluded grimly. "Not necessarily." Parker's eyes gleamed with unexpected determination. "I didn't show all my cards. The federal judge I contacted isn't just reviewing your case. He's launching an investigation into Union Pacific's entire land acquisition process in Colorado Territory." This revelation changed everything. A federal investigation carried weight that no amount of local influence could easily dismiss. "When does this investigation begin?" Lily asked. "It already has. Federal marshals should be in Denver now, reviewing records and interviewing witnesses." Parker smiled thinly. "Including several former Union Pacific employees who've agreed to testify about Reeves's methods." Hayes absorbed this information, recalibrating their position. "Then our job is to hold out until the federal authorities reach Silver Creek." "Exactly." Parker's expression sobered. "But make no mistake, these next few days will be dangerous. Reeves won't surrender his plans without a fight, especially now that he knows his methods are being scrutinized." After Parker's departure, Hayes called a meeting of all ranch personnel and their allies. In the main room of the house, he outlined their situation with blunt honesty. "Judge Parker's writ gives us breathing room, but Union Pacific won't give up easily. They'll try other tactics, perhaps cutting off our supply lines, tampering with our water, or staging more accidents like the barn fire." His gaze swept the assembled faces. "Anyone who wants to leave can do so now, with my thanks and full pay." Not a single person moved. "Then we dig in," Hayes continued. "Double the guards on the water sources. No one travels alone, even on ranch property. And we gather every shred of evidence we can about Union Pacific's actions." As the men dispersed to their assignments, Mrs. Donnelly approached Lily with unexpected urgency. "Come with me," she said quietly. "There's something you should know." In the kitchen, the housekeeper closed the door before turning to Lily with an uncharacteristically hesitant expression. "I've held my tongue until now because it wasn't my place, but with things as they are." She took a deep breath. "Your father came here 3 days ago while you were helping with the north pasture fencing." Shock rendered Lily momentarily speechless. "My father was here. Why didn't anyone tell me?" "He asked us not to," Mrs. Donnelly replied. "Said he needed to speak with Hayes privately. They talked in the study for nearly an hour." "What about—" "Hayes wouldn't say exactly, but afterward he seemed troubled, conflicted in a way I've rarely seen. Lily struggled to process this information. Her father had secretly met with Hayes, yet neither man had mentioned it to her. What could they have discussed that warranted such secrecy? "There's more," Mrs. Donnelly continued reluctantly. "That night, I overheard Hayes telling Fletcher to investigate someone named William Carver. Said it was urgent, related to Hayes's time with Union Pacific. The name meant nothing to Lily, but the connection to Hayes's past with the railroad sent a chill through her. Was this what her father had meant about Hayes having secrets? "Thank you for telling me," she said finally. "I need to speak with Hayes about this." "Tread carefully, child," the housekeeper advised. "Men like Hayes carry burdens that aren't easily shared. Whatever your father told him, it's clearly weighing on him heavily." Lily found Hayes in the study reviewing maps of the ranch with Fletcher and the Peterson brothers. She waited until they concluded their discussion of defensive positions before requesting a private word. When they were alone, she came directly to the point. "Mrs. Donnelly told me my father visited you 3 days ago. Why didn't you mention it?" Hayes's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "He asked me not to, said it would only complicate matters between you." "What did he want?" Hayes hesitated, clearly weighing his response. "To warn me. He claimed Reeves has something from my past that could be used against me, against us. Something involving William Carver." Surprise flashed in Hayes's eyes. "You've been thorough in your questioning of Mrs. Donnelly. She's concerned about you, as am I." Lily stepped closer, her voice softening. "Hayes, who is William Carver?" For a moment she thought he might evade the question. Instead, he moved to the window, staring out at the ranch, with shoulders tensed against some invisible burden. "Carver was Union Pacific's head of security when I worked for them," he finally said. "He handled problems that required solutions outside normal channels." "What kind of problems?" "Landowners who wouldn't sell. Local officials who couldn't be bribed." Hayes turned back to face her, his expression grave. "Carver's methods were efficient and brutal. When I resigned, I threatened to expose his activities unless he backed off from an elderly couple whose land was being seized." Understanding dawned. "And now Reeves has somehow connected you to Carver's actions. According to your father, Reeves has documents suggesting I was Carver's accomplice, that I participated in, even directed some of his intimidation tactics." Hayes's jaw tightened. "It's a lie, but a carefully crafted one. Enough to destroy my credibility with Judge Morrison and the federal investigation." Lily processed this troubling revelation. "Is that why my father came, to help you prepare for these accusations?" "Partly." Hayes hesitated again. "He also offered a deal. If I sold the Double B to Union Pacific willingly, Reeves would bury the Carver evidence and grant favorable terms for me and my men." The implication struck Lily like a physical blow. "And if you refused, not only would the evidence be presented to federal authorities, but your father would testify that he personally witnessed me ordering violent actions against Union Pacific personnel." "Blackmail," Lily whispered, bile rising in her throat. "My father is helping Reeves blackmail you." "He believes he's offering salvation," Hayes replied, a note of reluctant understanding in his voice. "In his mind, this fight is already lost. He's trying to secure the best possible outcome for everyone, including you. By forcing you to surrender everything you've fought for, by threatening to perjure himself." Indignation burned through Lily's initial shock. "That's not salvation, it's cowardice." "Perhaps." Hayes studied her face carefully. "Your father also revealed something else, Union Pacific's ultimate plan for this valley. The railway is merely the first phase. Once established, They intend to dam the main river, creating a reservoir that would flood most of the existing ranches, including what remains of your family's land. A dam, but that would destroy the entire ranching community and create prime lakefront property for the resort developments they're quietly planning. Your father discovered this accidentally. It wasn't meant for his ears. Lily sank into a chair, struggling to absorb these revelations. All this talk about progress, about benefiting the territory, it's been a lie from the beginning. A lie with powerful backers, Hayes confirmed grimly. The governor himself has invested heavily in the planned resort properties. The scope of the corruption was staggering, extending far beyond what they'd initially suspected. Yet something still didn't make sense. If my father knows all this, why is he still working with them? Why help destroy the very land his own family settled? Hayes's expression softened. Because of you, Lily. Reeves convinced him that if the Double B falls, you'll be implicated in any resistance we've mounted. Your father believes he's protecting you by helping orchestrate my surrender. The revelation of her father's twisted reasoning left Lily momentarily speechless. Even now, Jonathan Thornton's actions were driven by a warped, selfish version of paternal concern, viewing her as a helpless dependent rather than a woman capable of making her own choices. What did you tell him about Reeves's offer? That I needed time to consider, Hayes replied. It bought us the days we needed for Parker's federal writ to take effect. Lily studied him, sudden fear clutching at her heart. You weren't actually considering accepting? Hayes met her gaze directly. For about 5 minutes. Not for myself, but for you and everyone else at the Double B. If Reeves succeeds in painting me as a criminal, everyone associated with me suffers. So what changed your mind? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You did. The way you've stood on principle, despite personal cost. Surrendering to blackmail, even for practical reasons, would betray everything you believe in, everything I believe in, too. The simple honesty of his words touched something deep within Lily. This man, who had first appeared in her life as an unexpected rescuer, had become something far more: a partner in a battle that transcended mere property rights, a battle for justice and principle. What happens now? She asked quietly. We continue as planned, holding the ranch while awaiting federal intervention. But we also need contingency measures in case Reeves deploys the Carver evidence. Hayes paced the study, thinking aloud. If he portrays me as complicit in Carver's crimes, we need to prove otherwise. Your word against his, Lily mused. Unless we find Carver himself, Hayes finished. If he could be persuaded to testify about my actual role, my opposition to his methods, it would undermine Reeves's entire strategy. Do you know where to find him? No one does. After I left Union Pacific, Carver disappeared. Rumors suggested he'd outlived his usefulness once certain particularly troublesome landowners had been dealt with. Hayes's expression darkened. Some said Reeves had him eliminated to tie up loose ends. Others believed he was paid handsomely to vanish. A sudden thought struck Lily. Fletcher was investigating Carver at your request. Did he learn anything? Nothing concrete. Carver's trail went cold in Denver 3 years ago. Hayes sighed, frustration evident. He's our best defense against Reeves's accusations, and he's a ghost. As the day wore on, tension at the ranch remained high. Reports arrived hourly from scouts positioned throughout the valley, tracking Union Pacific movements. Reeves had established a camp at the edge of Double B property, just beyond the boundaries specified in Parker's federal writ, with a growing force that included not just company men, but also individuals identified as hired guns from Denver. By evening, Lily had retreated to the kitchen, helping Mrs. Donnelly prepare food for the expanded ranch population. The work provided welcome distraction from the looming threat beyond their boundaries and the troubling revelations about her father. She was kneading bread dough when Charlie Bear burst through the back door, his expression urgent. "Miss Thornton riders approaching from the East Road, 4 men. One's asking specifically for you." "For me?" Lily wiped flour from her hands. "Did they identify themselves? Just said they have information that couldn't be trusted to anyone else." Charlie's hand rested meaningfully on his holstered pistol. "Boss wants you to stay inside while we greet them." Ignoring this directive, Lily moved to the window, peering through the gathering dusk at the approaching riders. 3 were unfamiliar, but the 4th, a slight figure on a dappled mare, sent a shock of recognition through her. "That's Clara Bennett," she said incredulously. Lily hurried to the front porch where Hayes and several armed men had assembled to meet the unexpected visitors. As they drew closer, she confirmed her initial identification. Clara Bennett indeed rode with the group, her normally immaculate appearance disheveled from hard travel. Hayes signaled his men to lower their weapons slightly as the party halted at a respectful distance. "State your business," he called. The leader, a weathered man in his 50s with the bearing of a seasoned frontiersman, raised his hands to show peaceful intent. "Name's McAllister. Judge Parker sent us. Said you folks might need some assistance." Hayes remained cautious. "Parker didn't mention sending anyone." "Couldn't under the circumstances," McAllister replied. "We left Denver before he contacted you. Been tracking Union Pacific's movements for the Federal Marshal's office." He gestured to Clara. "Miss Bennett here has information she felt would be particularly valuable to Miss Thornton." All eyes turned to Clara, whose usual haughty demeanor had given way to visible anxiety. "I need to speak with Lily," she said, using Lily's given name for the first time in their acquaintance. "It's about her father and William Carver." The name's effect on Hayes was immediate. He signaled for the visitors to be allowed forward, though his men remained vigilant. Once inside, Clara's composed facade crumbled entirely. "I had to come," she said, accepting the tea Mrs. Donnelly pressed into her trembling hands. "What my father and Reeves are planning, it's not just business anymore. It's murder." "Explain," Hayes demanded, his patience clearly strained. Clara looked directly at Lily. "Your father discovered documents in Reeves's office papers implicating Reeves and my father in a scheme to eliminate anyone who might testify against them, including William Carver, who they've apparently been keeping paid off in Wyoming." "And my father told you this?" Lily asked skeptically. "No," Clara replied, her voice dropping. "He came to our house last night, desperate to speak with my father. I overheard them arguing. Your father was insisting they couldn't be party to murder that blackmailing Blackwood. With false evidence was one thing, but assassination." She swallowed hard. "My father told him he was in too deep to develop a conscience now." McAllister stepped forward. "We've been building a case against Reeves for months. Land fraud, intimidation, corruption of government officials, but murder elevates everything. If what Miss Bennett overheard is accurate, they're planning to eliminate not just potential witnesses, but also key opposition figures." His gaze shifted meaningfully to Hayes. "Including me," Hayes concluded grimly. "And Judge Parker," Clara added. "My father mentioned a hunting accident being arranged for him in the coming days." Lily felt sick. The corruption they'd been fighting had metastasized into something far darker than even their worst suspicions. "What happened to my father after this argument?" she asked, dreading the answer. Clara hesitated. "He tried to leave town. Reeves's men intercepted him on the Denver road. I don't know if he's alive or—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "He's alive," McAllister confirmed. "My men spotted him being brought to the Union Pacific camp 2 hours ago. He appeared injured but conscious." Relief flooded through Lily immediately, followed by fresh anxiety. If her father had tried to break with Reeves and failed, his position was perilous indeed. "We need to get him out," she said firmly. "Absolutely not," Hayes countered. "The camp is heavily guarded. Any rescue attempt would trigger the very confrontation we've been trying to avoid." "He tried to do the right thing," Lily insisted. "Whatever his previous actions, he finally drew a moral line. We can't abandon him to Reeves." Hayes's expression softened. "Lily, I understand your concern, but we're already outnumbered and surrounded. A rescue mission would endanger everyone at the Double B." McAllister cleared his throat. "There may be a third option. My men and I aren't officially here. We're advance scouts for the federal marshals arriving tomorrow. But we have experience in extracting people from difficult situations." "You're proposing to rescue Jonathan yourselves?" Hayes asked skeptically. "With your knowledge of the local terrain and Union Pacific's security patterns, yes." McAllister's weathered face creased in a confident smile. "It's what we do, Mr. Blackwood." Before Hayes could respond, a thunderous explosion shattered the evening calm, rattling windows and sending everyone instinctively diving for cover. As they rushed outside, the cause became immediately apparent. The eastern dam controlling irrigation to the lower pastures had been destroyed. Water was already flooding down the valley, rendering a significant portion of the ranch inaccessible. "They are isolating the house," Hayes realized aloud, watching the destruction unfold in the moonlight. "Cutting off potential escape routes one by one." Another explosion followed from the western boundary, confirming his assessment. Union Pacific was systematically destroying the ranch's infrastructure, creating a tightening noose around the main compound. "They're done waiting," McAllister observed grimly. "Whatever they're planning, it's happening tonight, not tomorrow." As if in confirmation, the distant sound of many horses approaching from multiple directions cut through the night air. Flames appeared on the horizon as outlying structures were torched, creating a ring of fire that illuminated dozens of mounted figures converging on the ranch house. "They're making their move," Hayes said, his voice deadly calm. "Everyone inside. Defensive positions." As the ranch hands rushed to their assigned posts, Lily caught Hayes's arm. "This isn't a legal action anymore. It's an attack." "It always was," he replied softly. "They've just stopped pretending otherwise." He turned to McAllister. "If you and your men want to withdraw, now's the time. This isn't your fight." The older man chuckled grimly. "Son, this became our fight the moment Reeves decided to subvert federal authority. Besides, we're federal agents, outnumbered, unofficial, and probably overconfident, but federal agents nonetheless." "Then welcome to the Double B," Hayes said, extending his hand. "Hope you're as good as you claim." As they moved inside to coordinate their defense, Clara pulled Lily aside, pressing something into her hand, a small Derringer pistol elaborately engraved. "My father gave me this for protection," she explained, her voice low. "I never thought I'd use it against the very dangers he created." Lily accepted the weapon, recognizing both the practical necessity and the symbolic significance of Clara's gesture. "Thank you." "I owe you an apology," Clara continued hesitantly. "The things I said at Founders' Day about you and Hayes, they were petty and cruel. The truth is, I envied you, not just for Hayes's attention, but for your courage to stand on principle when everyone else was compromising." The unexpected apology offered in what might be their final hours touched Lily deeply. "We all make choices, Clara. What matters is that when the moment of truth came, you chose to help rather than remain complicit." Their reconciliation was interrupted by Hayes, who approached with final instructions. "Both of you need to stay in the central rooms with Mrs. Donnelly. If the outer defenses fail, that's our fallback position. I'm not hiding while others fight, Lily stated firmly. I can shoot, and I know this house better than most of your men. Hayes started to object, then sighed in resignation. At least stay with McAllister's team on the second floor. They'll coordinate our defense if the perimeter is breached. As they moved to their positions, the approaching forces began calling out demands for surrender, their voices carrying across the rapidly diminishing distance. Reeves himself could be heard amplified by some kind of speaking trumpet. Blackwood, your position is hopeless. Surrender now, and no one need be harmed. Hayes stepped onto the darkened porch, keeping to shadows. You're trespassing on federally protected property. Reeves, withdraw your men, or face the consequences. When a laughter greeted this defiance. Federal protection. Your precious writ is already invalidated by governor's order. You are now facing the legally constituted authority of the Colorado Territory. There's nothing legal about burning property and destroying dams, Hayes called back. You've crossed from intimidation to outright criminality, Reeves. There's no going back from that. Criminality. Reeves's voice dripped with mock indignation. I have witnesses who'll testify this was a necessary action to apprehend a dangerous fugitive, you, Blackwood. In fact, I have someone here who's particularly eager to set the record straight. A commotion near the front of Reeves's forces revealed Jonathan Thornton being roughly pushed forward. His face bloodied his stance, suggesting broken ribs or worse. Tell him, Thornton, Reeves demanded. Tell your daughter what happens to those who betray Union Pacific's interests. From her position at an upstairs window, Lily could just make out her father's battered face in the firelight. Despite his injuries, Jonathan straightened as much as his broken body allowed. Hayes Blackwood is an honorable man, he shouted, his voice cracked but defiant. The only criminals here are Reeves and his conspirators. They plan to flood this entire valley for a resort development. They've murdered to keep it secret. The unexpected declaration sent a ripple of confusion through both sides. Reeves, momentarily stunned by Jonathan's betrayal, recovered quickly. Restrain that man. He's clearly delirious from his injuries. But Jonathan wasn't finished. Wrenching free from his captors, he stumbled forward into the full illumination of the firelight. My daughter was right all along. I signed false statements against Blackwood under duress. William Carver is alive and can confirm Blackwood's innocence. He's being held at... The crack of a rifle shot split the night. Jonathan crumpled mid-sentence, falling face forward into the dirt. Father! Lily's anguished cry escaped before she could stop herself. Beside her, Clara gasped in horror. From below, Hayes's voice cut through the stunned silence, cold with controlled fury. You've just executed a man in cold blood, Reeves, in front of 20 witnesses. There's no territorial authority that will protect you from that. Momentary confusion reigned in Reeves's ranks, some men clearly disturbed by the casual murder they'd just witnessed. Reeves himself seemed to realize he'd overplayed his hand, commanding his forces to advance immediately. Take the house, I want Blackwood alive if possible, but take him regardless. As the attackers surged forward, McAllister gripped Lily's shoulder. Your father's sacrifice may have just turned the tide, he said grimly. Some of Reeves's own men are holding back now. Murder changes everything. But Lily barely heard him, her focus narrowed to the still form of her father lying in the dirt between opposing forces. Whatever his flaws, whatever his mistakes, Jonathan Thornton had died attempting to speak truth. In his final moments, he had found the courage that had eluded him in life. They're coming, Clara whispered, her knuckles white around her father's derringer. God help us all. Outside, the first shots rang out as Hayes's defensive line engaged the approaching forces. The battle for the Double B had begun in earnest, a battle that would determine not just the fate of a ranch, but the future of an entire valley, and the triumph or defeat of justice in a territory balanced between lawlessness and civilization. Gunfire erupted across the Double B ranch as Reeves's forces advanced through the darkness. From her position at the upstairs window, Lily watched the muzzle flashes illuminate the night like lightning, revealing brief glimpses of men crouching, running, falling. The ranch hands and their allies had established a defensive perimeter around the main house using outbuildings and hastily constructed barricades for cover. Hayes directed the defense with the calm precision of a man who had prepared for this moment, moving between positions to bolster weak points and maintain morale. Even amid chaos, his presence steadied those around him, a natural leader protecting what was his. McAllister positioned his small team strategically throughout the upper floor. "We're not here to win a war," he explained to Lily and Clara, "just to hold until reinforcements arrive." "And when will that be?" Clara asked, her voice tight with fear. "Dawn, if we're lucky." Judge Parker was sending riders to intercept the federal marshal's party, urging them to accelerate their approach. Lily's attention remained fixed on her father's motionless form, still lying where he had fallen between the battle lines. In the chaos of the initial assault, neither side had been able to retrieve him. "He knew," she said softly, "about William Carver's location. That's why they killed him before he could finish speaking." McAllister nodded grimly. "Carver is Reeves's vulnerability. If we could locate him, his testimony would confirm everything your father was trying to reveal." A sudden surge in the attacking force drew their attention. Reeves's men had breached the outer defensive line, forcing Hayes and his people back toward the house itself. Bullets splintered wood around the windows as Lily ducked instinctively. "They're trying to flush us out with suppressing fire," McAllister observed. "Stay low, but watch for anyone reaching the porch." The battle intensified as Hayes and the remaining defenders retreated to the house, taking positions at ground-floor windows and doorways. The solid construction of the Double B main house, built by Hayes's father with defense in mind, now proved its worth, its thick walls absorbing the attackers' bullets. From below, Hayes's voice called up the stairs. "McAllister, we can hold the ground floor, but they're trying to circle around back." "On it," the federal agent replied, directing two of his men to cover the rear approaches. Lily moved to a window overlooking the eastern side of the property where the demolished dam had flooded the lower pastures. The water glinted in the moonlight, a silver barrier that had indeed cut off one avenue of approach, but also of escape. A movement near the tree line caught her attention. A small group of riders was approaching cautiously, not from Reeves's main position, but from the north, an unexpected direction. As they drew closer, Lily recognized Sheriff Taylor at their head, accompanied by half a dozen deputies. "The sheriff's arrived," she reported tensely, "with men." McAllister joined her at the window, studying the newcomers through a small spyglass. "Interesting. They're not joining Reeves's direct assault." "Could they be honoring the federal writ after all?" Clara suggested hopefully. "Or positioning themselves to claim whatever remains when the dust settles," Lily countered. Sheriff Taylor's loyalties had always seemed clear firmly with the moneyed interests of Silver Creek. Below, the battle reached a momentary lull as both sides reloaded and reassessed. Hayes used the opportunity to join them upstairs, his face streaked with gunpowder and sweat. "We've lost the barn and stables," he reported grimly, "but inflicted enough casualties that they're reconsidering a direct assault. Reeves seems to be regrouping for a more coordinated attack." Lily pointed out the sheriff's arrival. "What do you make of that?" Hayes studied the new development with narrowed eyes. "Taylor's no friend of ours, but he's a lawman first. Witnessing Reeves murder Jonathan in cold blood might have forced him to reconsider his position. Or, McAllister suggested, he's realized that federal involvement is inevitable and doesn't want to be on the wrong side when it arrives. A sharp whistle from outside drew their attention. In the clearing before the house, illuminated by the fires still burning around the property, Samuel Reeves himself had appeared, flanked by armed men, but holding up his hands to indicate a desire to parley. "Blackwood," he called, "this bloodshed is unnecessary. I'm authorized to offer terms." Hayes's jaw tightened, but he moved to the window. "What terms, Reeves? More threats, more murders." "Unfortunate incidents occur in the heat of battle," Reeves replied smoothly. What happened to Thornton was regrettable but unavoidable. He was clearly deranged, making wild accusations. "He was speaking truth," Hayes countered. "About you, about Union Pacific's real plans for this valley. And you killed him for it." Reeves's expression hardened, visible even at this distance. "My offer is simple. Surrender now and your people go free. No charges, no repercussions. You alone will face legal consequences as the instigator of this resistance. And the Double B will fulfill its destiny as part of the greatest transportation network this nation has ever known." Reeves's voice rose, addressing not just Hayes, but all defenders. "Progress cannot be denied, gentlemen. The railroad must go through. Anyone who stands with Blackwood now shares his fate, outlaws, against the march of civilization." A tense silence followed this declaration. Hayes turned to those gathered in the room, his expression grave. "He's trying to divide us, offer temptation to surrender." "Will it work?" Clara asked quietly. "Not with my men," Hayes replied confidently. "But we're outgunned and outnumbered. If Reeves commits his full force to a coordinated assault—" McAllister interrupted. "Something's happening with the sheriff." They returned to the window to see Sheriff Taylor approaching the house from the side, deliberately away from Reeves's position, a white handkerchief tied to his rifle barrel. "Cover me," Hayes said, moving toward the stairs. "I'm going to hear what Taylor has to say." "It could be a trap," Lily protested. "Possibly, but Taylor's a lawman, not a hired gun. There's a difference even now." Lily watched anxiously as Hayes stepped onto the front porch, rifle lowered but ready. Taylor approached cautiously alone, leaving his deputies at a distance. "Blackwood," the sheriff acknowledged. "Taylor, come to join Reeves's illegal assault. Come to stop it if possible." Taylor's weathered face was etched with strain. "What happened to Jonathan Thornton crosses a line I won't be party to." Hayes studied him skeptically. "You've supported Union Pacific at every turn." "Supporting progress is one thing. Witnessing cold-blooded murder is another." Taylor lowered his voice, though Lily could still hear him from the window above. "Judge Parker reached the federal marshals. They're less than 2 hours away with a full complement. I've seen their telegraphed orders. They're authorized to take control of the situation by any means necessary, including arresting Reeves, and anyone acting under his authority." Hope surged within Lily. If Taylor was speaking truth, they only needed to hold out a little longer. "Why tell me this?" Hayes asked. "Why not Reeves?" "Because Reeves already knows." Taylor's expression darkened. "And he intends to finish this before they arrive. He's planning to burn you out fire arrows into the roof coal oil around the foundations. His men are preparing now." The brutal strategy made terrible sense. With the house in flames, the defenders would be forced to choose between burning alive or facing gunfire in the open. "Why are you really here, Taylor?" Hayes pressed. "Conscience finally getting to you." The sheriff's face tightened. "My badge means something, Blackwood. Maybe I forgot that for a while, letting Union Pacific dictate law in this county. But I won't stand by for murder and arson." He hesitated. "There's something else. Thornton wasn't just raving before they shot him. William Carver is alive, being held at Bennett's hunting cabin north of town. I've known for weeks, but looked the other way." This revelation confirmed Jonathan's final words and explained why Reeves had silenced him so quickly. Carver truly was the key witness who could bring down Union Pacific's entire corrupt enterprise. "So what are you proposing?" Hayes asked. "A diversion. My deputies and I will engage Reeves from the east, draw enough attention for you to get your people out the back way. There's a path through the flooded pasture that's still passable barely. Get to the high ground and hold until the marshals arrive." Hayes considered this offer, weighing its sincerity against the possibility of betrayal. "And what do you want in return? When this is over, you tell the federal authorities I helped, that I chose the right side in the end." Pride and shame warred in Taylor's voice. "I've got a family, Blackwood. I don't want my children growing up with a father in prison, or worse, remembered as a corrupt lawman who aided murderers." After a moment's deliberation, Hayes nodded. "We have an agreement, Sheriff, but if this is a trap—" "It's not." Taylor turned to go, then paused. "One more thing. Thornton's body. My men will recover it during the diversion. Miss Thornton shouldn't have to see her father left like that." And the simple humanity of this gesture seemed to convince Hayes more than anything else. "Thank you." Back inside, Hayes quickly outlined Taylor's information and proposal. "It's risky, but offers our best chance. McAllister, your assessment." The federal agent nodded thoughtfully. "Taylor's information about the marshal's approach rings true. It aligns with the timetable we expected, and if he's correct about Reeves planning to burn us out, remaining here is suicide." "Then we evacuate," Hayes decided, "in groups of 3 through the back study window, using the orchard for cover. Mrs. Donnelly and Clara first, then Lily with McAllister." "I'm staying with you," Lily stated firmly. Hayes's expression softened momentarily. "Lily, please. If something happens to me, then I should be there to prevent it," she interrupted. "I'm not leaving while you remain in danger." Their eyes held for a long moment before Hayes finally nodded. "Very well, but you stay with me at all times." The evacuation began as Taylor's diversion erupted on the eastern flank, a convincing display of gunfire and shouted commands that drew Reeves's immediate attention. The first groups slipped out successfully, vanishing into the darkness of the orchard beyond the house. Hayes, Lily, and McAllister were preparing to follow when a tremendous crash reverberated through the building. Reeves's men had breached the front door. Gunfire erupted in the downstairs hallway as the remaining ranch hands engaged the intruders. "Go!" Hayes ordered Fletcher, who had stayed to cover their retreat. "Get to the meeting point. We'll be right behind you." As Fletcher disappeared through the window, Hayes moved to a position overlooking the main staircase, firing twice at shadowy figures advancing below. "They're inside sooner than expected," McAllister observed grimly. "Taylor's diversion didn't hold their attention long enough." "Or Reeves guessed our strategy," Hayes replied. "Either way, our exit is compromised. They'll have men watching the orchard now." Lily's mind raced, reviewing the house's layout for alternatives. "The root cellar," she suggested suddenly. "It has an outside entrance for bringing in winter stores. It's concealed by the kitchen garden." Hayes nodded appreciatively. "Good thinking. Let's move." They retreated through the house's back corridors, the sounds of fighting growing louder behind them. In the kitchen they found the trapdoor to the cellar partially blocked by an overturned cabinet, perhaps knocked over in the earlier fighting, perhaps deliberately positioned by one of the defenders as a precaution. As Hayes and McAllister struggled to shift the heavy piece of furniture, voices approached from the hall, Reeves and his men methodically clearing the house room by room. "Where is he?" Reeves's voice demanded. "Blackwood couldn't have escaped. Search every corner." With a final heave, Hayes and McAllister moved the cabinet enough to access the trapdoor. Hayes lifted it carefully, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. "Lily first," he whispered. "Then McAllister." Lily began her descent, moving carefully in the near-total darkness. The root cellar smelled of earth and preserved vegetables, its packed dirt floor cool beneath her feet. Behind her came McAllister, then finally Hayes, easing the trapdoor closed above them. "The outside entrance should be straight ahead," Lily whispered, feeling her way forward. "Behind the apple barrels." They navigated by touch, the darkness absolute. Lily's hands found the rough wooden doors that opened outward into the kitchen garden, secured from inside by a simple wooden bar. She removed it carefully, preparing to push the doors open just enough to slip through. "Wait," Hayes cautioned, his voice barely audible. "Listen first." They held their breath, ears straining. Outside, boots crunched on gravel, Reeves's men patrolling the grounds. The footsteps passed near the cellar entrance, then continued around the side of the house. "Now," Hayes whispered, quickly and silently. Lily pushed one door open slightly, creating just enough space to squeeze through. Outside, the night air felt blessedly fresh after the close confines of the cellar. The kitchen garden offered some concealment with its rows of tall corn and bean trellises, but beyond lay open ground they would need to cross to reach the relative safety of the flooded pasture's edge. McAllister emerged next, immediately scanning their surroundings with professional wariness. "Guards at both corners of the house," he reported in a barely audible whisper. "Another by the well." Hayes joined them, easing the cellar door closed behind him. "We'll have to time this carefully. When the patrol passes again, we make for the willow thicket beyond the vegetable patch. Then the drainage ditch to the pasture." They crouched in tense silence, watching the rhythmic movement of the guards. When the moment came, Hayes nodded, and they darted across the open ground, keeping low among the garden plants, until they reached the shelter of the drooping willow branches. Lily's heart pounded as they paused to assess their next move. From this position, she could see flames beginning to lick at the roof of the Double B main house. Reeves had implemented his burning strategy despite not confirming all defenders had been eliminated. The sight of Hayes's family home beginning to burn stirred a profound ache within her. "Hayes," she whispered, touching his arm. He followed her gaze to the growing flames, his expression momentarily revealing the depth of his pain before resolve reasserted itself. "It's just a building," he said quietly. "What matters is that our people got out safely." The simple statement, delivered with such genuine conviction, touched Lily deeply. Despite everything he stood to lose materially, Hayes Blackwood understood what truly held value. Their path to the drainage ditch required crossing 15 yards of open ground, illuminated now by the growing fire. McAllister studied the terrain, then pointed to where the shadows from the equipment shed created a darker corridor. "That's our best route," he determined. "But we'll need to move quickly. The fire will draw more attention this way soon." They waited for the patrol to pass once more, then sprinted for the shadow corridor. They had almost reached it when a shout rang out behind them. They'd been spotted. There, by the shed. Gunfire erupted, bullets striking the ground around them as they dove for cover. McAllister returned fire, providing momentary suppression, while Hayes pulled Lily toward the drainage ditch. "Go!" McAllister ordered. I'll hold them off. We're not leaving you, Hayes protested. This isn't a debate, Blackwood. Get her to safety. I'll be right behind you. Hayes hesitated only a moment before acknowledging the tactical necessity. Taking Lily's hand, he led her in a crouching run toward the drainage ditch, a 4-foot-deep channel that would provide both cover and a path toward the flooded pasture. Behind them, McAllister's covering fire became sporadic, then ceased. Lily glanced back to see him fall, clutching his shoulder, before rolling into deeper shadows. "McAllister's hit," she gasped. Hayes turned, clearly torn between continuing toward safety and helping the fallen agent. The decision was made for them when more of Reeves's men appeared, converging on their position from multiple directions. "Down!" Hayes pushed Lily flat as bullets whined overhead. They had reached the drainage ditch, but were effectively pinned down with opponents on 3 sides. "We can't stay here," Lily whispered urgently. "They'll surround us completely in minutes." Hayes surveyed their deteriorating situation, his mind clearly racing through dwindling options. The main house was now fully ablaze, casting an unnatural daylight over the entire area, and eliminating the cover of darkness they had relied upon. "There's only one way," he said finally. "The flooded pasture. They won't expect us to go directly into the water." Lily understood immediately. The demolished dam had created a shallow lake where the eastern pasture had been. Wading through water at night would be dangerous, the footing uncertain, the spring runoff bitterly cold, but it offered their only path away from the tightening noose of Reeves's forces. "I can swim if necessary," she confirmed. Hayes nodded grimly. "Stay low, follow the ditch as far as possible, then we make a break for the water's edge." They crawled through the drainage channel mud, soaking their clothes, aware that each moment brought more of Reeves's men into position around them. When they reached the point where the ditch emptied into the newly formed lake, Hayes paused to orientate himself. "The water gets deeper toward the center, but there's a ridge running parallel to the old fence line. If we can reach that, it should provide a path to higher ground." A bullet striking the mud inches from Hayes's head emphasized the urgency of their situation. Without further discussion, they slipped into the water, its icy grip stealing Lily's breath momentarily. They waded forward, keeping as low as possible, using floating debris from the destroyed dam for minimal cover. Behind them, confused shouting suggested Reeves's men had lost track of their quarry in the darkness beyond the fire's glow. But this advantage wouldn't last. Soon, someone would think to check the flooded area, especially as the house fire illuminated more of the surrounding terrain. They had progressed perhaps 50 yards when Lily stumbled on an unseen obstacle, going completely under before Hayes could catch her. She surfaced, gasping, the cold water now saturating her entirely. Hayes supported her with a strong arm around her waist. "Are you all right?" he whispered anxiously. "Yes," she managed through chattering teeth. "Just keep going." The submerged ridge Hayes had mentioned materialized beneath their feet, providing slightly shallower footing as they continued their frigid journey. The water still reached mid-chest on Lily, making progress slow and draining their energy with its persistent cold. A shout from behind confirmed their fears. Someone had spotted movement in the water. Shots rang out, creating small geysers around them as bullets struck the surface. "Down!" Hayes pulled Lily deeper, using the ridge and water for cover. They moved as quickly as possible while staying mostly submerged, only raising their heads occasionally for precious air. The ridge gradually ascended the water, becoming shallower as they approached the natural rise that formed the eastern boundary of the Double B. Behind them, the main house had become a towering inferno, its light reflecting off the floodwaters in a grotesque parody of beauty. They had almost reached the shore when a final volley of shots erupted from pursuers who had worked their way around the water's edge. Hayes grunted a sound Lily felt rather than heard, as his arm was still around her waist. "Hayes?" she questioned urgently. "Keep going," he replied, his voice strained. "Almost there." They staggered onto solid groundwater streaming from their sodden clothes and sought immediate cover among the rocks and scrub brush of the rising terrain. Only then did Lily see the dark stain spreading across Hayes's left side. A bullet had found its mark. "You're hit," she gasped, reaching for the wound. "It's nothing," he insisted, though his pallor and tightened features suggested otherwise. "Just a graze." A cursory examination in the dim light proved this a significant understatement. The bullet had torn through his side, not immediately life-threatening, but serious enough to require prompt attention. "We need to stop the bleeding," Lily said, tearing strips from her petticoat to fashion a makeshift bandage. Hayes submitted to her ministrations with surprising docility, a concerning sign in itself. "The rendezvous point is half a mile northeast," he said, his voice growing weaker. "The others should be gathering there." Lily worked quickly, binding the wound as best she could with limited resources. "Can you walk that far?" "Do I have a choice?" A ghost of Hayes's usual determination flickered in his eyes. Supporting much of his weight, Lily helped him navigate the rocky terrain, each step requiring conscious effort. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit continued. Though more distant now, their water crossing had indeed confused the trackers temporarily. They had covered perhaps a quarter-mile when Hayes stumbled, nearly falling before Lily could brace him against a boulder. His breathing had become labored, his skin clammy with shock. "Need to rest," he managed, "just for a moment." "No," Lily replied firmly, fear lending strength to her voice. "If you stop now, you won't start again. We have to keep moving." "Lily," Hayes said softly, using her given name with a tenderness that frightened her more than his physical weakness. "If I don't make it—" "Don't," she interrupted fiercely. "Don't you dare say goodbye. We've come too far to surrender now." The determination in her voice seemed to reach him. With visible effort, Hayes pushed himself upright. "You're right. Lead on." They continued their painful progress, each step a victory against pain and exhaustion. The night had begun to soften toward dawn, the eastern sky showing the first hints of color above the distant mountains. With this growing light came increased danger of detection, but also renewed hope. Dawn was when the federal marshals were expected to arrive. The terrain grew steeper as they ascended, offering better defensive positions, but making their journey more challenging. Hayes's strength was clearly failing, his steps increasingly unsteady, despite his iron will. "There," he breathed suddenly, pointing to a rocky outcropping ahead. That should be the meeting place." As they approached, figures emerged cautiously from concealment. Fletcher, the Peterson brothers, several ranch hands, and to Lily's immense relief, Mrs. Donnelly and Clara. Mrs. Donnelly rushed forward when she saw Hayes's condition. "Get him down quick," she ordered, her practical nature asserting itself immediately. "I've got medical supplies here." They settled Hayes against a sheltered rock face while Mrs. Donnelly examined his wound with experienced hands. "Bullet went clean through," she reported. "That's something at least. But he's lost blood, and there's risk of infection." "Will he be all right?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The older woman's expression softened. "He's strong, child, and he has something to live for." Her knowing glance between them spoke volumes. Fletcher approached, his weathered face grim. "Most of our men made it out. 3 confirmed dead, a few more wounded. No sign of McAllister or his people yet." "McAllister was hit," Hayes said weakly, "covering our escape." "What about the sheriff?" Lily asked. "His diversion worked, at least initially," Fletcher replied. "Last we saw, his deputies were engaged with Reeves's eastern flank. They recovered your father's body as promised." This small mercy amidst so much destruction brought unexpected tears to Lily's eyes. Whatever his failings, Jonathan Thornton deserved dignity in death, especially after his final brave stand. Clara joined them, her normally perfect appearance disheveled, but her composure remarkably intact, given the circumstances. "There's movement in the valley," she reported. "Large groups of riders approaching from the south." Fletcher climbed higher for a better view, then returned with renewed urgency. "Two separate forces. One's definitely Reeves and his men. They've regrouped and are heading this way. The others—" He paused, squinting into the distance. "They're flying federal colors." "The marshals," Lily breathed. "They've arrived." Hope surged through the battered group, but Hayes remained pragmatic even in his weakened state. "Reeves will try to reach us first. Eliminate witnesses before federal authority can intervene." As if confirming his assessment, gunfire erupted from the lower slopes as Reeves's advance scouts located their position. The ranch hands returned fire, using the rocky terrain for cover. "Get the women higher," Hayes ordered, attempting to rise despite his wound. "More defensible position near the summit." "You're not fighting," Lily stated firmly, helping Mrs. Donnelly apply a fresh bandage to his side. "You can barely stand." Before Hayes could argue, Fletcher intervened. "Boss, we've got this. You've done enough. Let us hold them off until the marshals arrive." The admission that he was physically incapable of leading the defense clearly cost Hayes, but he finally nodded. "Don't engage directly unless absolutely necessary. Delay tactics only." As the men moved to defensive positions, Lily and Mrs. Donnelly helped Hayes further up the rocky slope to a natural hollow that offered both concealment and protection. Clara followed, carrying the small medical kit and what remained of their water. From this elevated position, they could see both approaching forces clearly, Reeves's men working their way up from the valley floor, and beyond them, the federal marshals advancing at a gallop across the open plain. It would be a race to determine which reached them first. "They're coming too slowly," Clara observed anxiously, watching the marshals' progress. "Reeves will reach us before they can intervene." "Then we hold," Lily said simply. "We've come too far to falter now." Hayes reached for her hand, his grip surprisingly strong despite his weakened condition. "Lily," he began, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "If we survive this, when we survive this, there's something I need to tell you." "Tell me now," she urged, sudden fear gripping her heart that he might not have another chance. His blue eyes met hers directly, no pretense or reservation remaining between them. "I love you, not as an employer admires an employee, or even as a man respects a partner. I love you as a man loves the woman he wants to build a life with." The simple declaration, delivered with such straightforward honesty, momentarily robbed Lily of speech. All the unacknowledged feelings that had grown between them over these past weeks, respect deepening to admiration, admiration to affection, affection to something far more profound, crystallized in this moment of truth. "I love you too," she replied softly, the words feeling both revolutionary and inevitable. "I think, perhaps, I have since you found me on that dusty road." A smile touched Hayes's pale lips. "Then, regardless of what happens in the next hour, I count myself a fortunate man." Their moment was interrupted by intensified gunfire below as Reeves's force made a determined push toward their position. Fletcher and the others were holding firm, using the natural terrain to maintain their defensive advantage, but the attackers' superior numbers were gradually telling. "They're flanking us from the west," Clara reported, watching the battle unfold, "trying to find a way around our defenses." As if summoned by her observation, 3 of Reeves's men appeared on a ridge less than 50 yards away, having circumvented the main defensive line. They spotted the small group immediately raising their rifles. Without hesitation, Clara raised her father's derringer and fired the small weapon's report, almost lost amid the larger battle. One attacker clutched his arm in surprise. The tiny bullet had found its mark, despite the distance. The momentary confusion gave Mrs. Donnelly time to produce her own weapon, a shotgun she had somehow managed to bring through the evacuation. Its thunderous blast was far more decisive, sending the attackers scrambling back for cover. "Well done," Hayes commented weakly, a ghost of his usual humor surfacing despite their dire situation. Below, the battle intensified as the two forces drew closer to convergence. The federal marshals had accelerated their approach clearly, recognizing the urgency of the situation. Leading them was a figure Lily recognized with astonishment. Judge Parker himself, apparently recovered enough from his injuries to join the relief force. Reeves must have recognized the imminent intervention of federal authority as well. His tactics shifted from methodical advance to desperate assault, driving his men forward with reckless abandon. The cost in lives seemed inconsequential to him, now only eliminating witnesses mattered. A final push brought several of his most determined followers to the rocky hollow where Hayes and the women had taken refuge. Mrs. Donnelly's shotgun accounted for one, but the others pressed forward, hatred and desperation in their eyes. As Lily raised Hayes's discarded revolver, prepared to defend him to the last, a new eruption of gunfire tore through the attackers from behind. McAllister appeared like an avenging spirit, his left arm bandaged, but his right still capable of remarkable marksmanship. With him came Sheriff Taylor and two deputies, their badges catching the early morning light. "Federal marshals are less than 5 minutes behind us," McAllister announced, securing the perimeter with practiced efficiency. "Reeves is caught between our position and their advance." Relief washed over Lily so intensely she nearly collapsed beside Hayes, whose hand still gripped hers with surprising strength. "We made it," she whispered. "We actually made it." The final confrontation occurred not with further bloodshed, but with the authority of law. As the federal marshals secured the hillside position, Reeves found himself surrounded, his remaining men either surrendering or melting away into the countryside. Judge Parker himself placed Reeves under arrest, reading the charges with grim satisfaction. "Samuel Reeves, by the authority of the United States Circuit Court, you are charged with conspiracy, fraud, intimidation, destruction of property, and the murder of Jonathan Thornton." The list continued a comprehensive accounting of Union Pacific's corrupt activities throughout the territory. As Reeves was led away in irons, his empire crumbling around him, Hayes was carefully transferred to a makeshift stretcher for the journey to Silver Creek, where proper medical attention awaited. Lily walked beside him, refusing to leave his side even for a moment. "The Double B," he said weakly as they descended the slope. The devastation of the ranch, visible in the morning light. Burned buildings, demolished dams, scarred land. "It can be rebuilt," Lily assured him. "All of it." Together, Hayes affirmed the single word carrying the weight of a promise. 3 weeks later, Hayes sat on the porch of Mrs. Winters's boarding house in Silver Creek, his recovery progressing well under the combined care of the town doctor and the determined ministrations of both Lily and Mrs. Donnelly. The federal investigation had expanded dramatically, revealing corruption that extended from local officials all the way to territorial governance and Union Pacific's highest echelons. William Carver had indeed been found at Bennett's hunting cabin, exactly as Jonathan Thornton had tried to reveal before his death. His testimony proved devastating to Reeves's defense, confirming not only Union Pacific's illegal tactics, but also exonerating Hayes completely from any involvement in Carver's past crimes. Lily joined Hayes on the porch, bringing coffee and the latest Denver newspaper, which featured extensive coverage of the Silver Creek land fraud scandal, as it had been dubbed by the press. "They're calling you a hero," she noted, settling beside him. Hayes shook his head slightly. "The real heroes were those who sacrificed everything, your father, Judge Parker, even Taylor in the end. I was just protecting what was mine." "Speaking of which," Lily continued, her expression brightening, "Fletcher reports the reconstruction of the main house is ahead of schedule. The new foundation is complete, and framing begins next week." The Double B's rebirth had become a community project, with ranchers and townspeople alike contributing labor and materials. The federal government, eager to demonstrate support for legitimate landowners after Union Pacific's abuses, had provided compensation for damages sustained during what was now officially termed the illegal assault on legally deeded property. "I've been thinking," Hayes said, his hand finding hers in what had become a familiar, comfortable gesture, "about the future of the Double B Bull." "Oh," Lily prompted when he hesitated. "It's too big for one person to manage alone. Needs a partner, someone with intelligence, determination, and a gift for organization." His blue eyes met hers directly. "Someone I can't imagine living without." Lily's heart quickened as she recognized the direction of his words. "Are you offering me a business partnership, Mr. Blackwood?" A smile touched his lips at her deliberate misunderstanding. "Among other things, Miss Thornton." He shifted slightly to face her more directly. "I meant what I said on that hillside. I love you. Would you consider making our partnership permanent in every sense?" The simple, heartfelt proposal brought tears to Lily's eyes. "Yes," she replied softly. "Yes to all of it." Hayes raised her hand to his lips, the gesture both respectful and intimate. "I can't promise it will always be easy. Ranching rarely is, but I can promise that you'll never doubt your worth to me, a worth far greater than all the land and cattle in the territory." "That's all I need to know," Lily replied, her heart full. "The rest we'll face together." 6 months later, a small gathering assembled in the newly completed main house of the Double B Ranch. Judge Parker, fully recovered and reinstated to the federal bench, officiated as Hayes Blackwood and Lily Thornton exchanged vows before friends who had become family through shared struggle. Mrs. Donnelly wept openly, her usual stoicism abandoned for this special occasion. Fletcher and the ranch hands stood proudly in new suits, watching their boss marry the woman who had helped save everything they valued. Clara Bennett, now working with the federal prosecutor's office to build cases against corrupt officials, beamed with genuine happiness for her former rival turned friend. At the edge of the gathering stood Sheriff Taylor, his presence a testament to redemption found through difficult choices. Beside the fireplace hung a small painting of Jonathan Thornton, commissioned from a photograph Lily had preserved, ensuring her father's final courage would be remembered in the home he had inadvertently helped save. As Hayes and Lily sealed their vows with a kiss, sunlight streamed through the new windows, illuminating the assembled company and the future they had fought to secure. Outside, the Double B stretched toward the horizon, its pastures recovering its herds, rebuilding its water, flowing freely across land that remained in the hands of those who understood its true value. Later that evening, as celebrations continued around them, Hayes led Lily to the hillside overlooking the ranch, the same vantage point from which he had first proposed months earlier. In the fading light, the rebuilt structures gleamed with fresh paint and new purpose. "What do you see?" he asked softly, his arm around her waist. Lily surveyed the land, not just the buildings and fences, but the subtle contours that defined its character, the streams that gave it life, the rich soil that promised continued abundance. Beyond mere property, she saw legacy and possibility, history and future intertwined. "Home," she answered simply. "Our home." Hayes nodded understanding perfectly. Worth fighting for. Worth everything, Lily agreed, leaning into his embrace as darkness settled gently over the Double B land that had witnessed violence and healing loss and restoration, and ultimately the triumph of those who recognized that true worth could never be measured in acres or dollars, but in the courage to stand for what matters most.